The myth is a comfortable one. It's a story you've heard 1,000 times, in 1,000 different forms. He was a flawed genius, a brilliant rogue, a man ahead of his time, misunderstood by his lesser, more jealous contemporaries. He was the rock star, the tragic hero, the one who could have saved them all if they had just trusted him, if they had just let him be him. The story of Alcibiades, son of Cleinias, is often painted this way. A dazzling comet that burned too brightly for the dull gray world of ancient Greece. Athens cast him out, so he went to Sparta. Sparta grew wary of him, so he went to Persia. He played them all against each other, a master of the game, always one step ahead, until his luck finally ran out in a hail of arrows in some forgotten Phrygian backwater. It's a great story. It has drama, sex, betrayal, and a handsome, doomed protagonist. It would make a fantastic prestige television series. The only problem is, it's mostly bullshit. The reality is far messier, far more pathetic, and infinitely more human. The reality is that Alcibiades wasn't a misunderstood genius. He was a pathologically narcissistic personality with the impulse control of a toddler, gifted with sublime charisma and a complete lack of any moral or ethical core. He wasn't a tragic hero, betrayed by his people. He was a self-serving agent of chaos who actively and repeatedly betrayed everyone who ever placed an ounce of trust in him, all for the sake of his own ego. He didn't almost save Athens. He, more than any other single individual, was the architect of its ruin. And he wasn't rejected because they couldn't handle his brilliance. He was rejected because both Athens and Sparta, two of the most ruthless and ideologically opposed powers of the ancient world, independently came to the exact same conclusion. This man is a liability we cannot afford. He's a human-shaped vortex of self-interest so powerful it threatens to tear our entire society apart. Getting rid of him wasn't a mistake. It was a desperate act of political sanitation. So let's dispense with the romance. Let's walk past the marble busts with their noble, sightless eyes and get down on the ground, in the filth and the noise and the fear of the late 5th century B.C. Let's understand why. Why was this man, blessed with every advantage a mortal could ask for, wealth, beauty, intelligence, connections, so toxic that he became an outcast from the very concept of home? To understand that, you have to understand the world that made him, and the world he, in turn, helped to unmake. Imagine for a moment that you are there. You are not a philosopher in a clean chiton strolling through a sun-dappled agora and debating the nature of the good. You are not a hero in gleaming bronze, standing on the prow of a trireme. You are just you. An Athenian. And it is suffocating. The year is somewhere in the final decades of the Peloponnesian War, and the air itself is thick with a low-grade, grinding anxiety. The war against Sparta has been going on for your entire life. It is the background noise to every meal, every conversation, every birth, and every death. The city is walled, a stone cage packed with people. The famous long walls stretching down to the port of Piraeus are your lifeline and your prison. They keep the Spartan hoplites out, but they keep you in stewing in a humid man-made miasma. The smell is the first thing that hits you. It's a complex and deeply unpleasant perfume. There's the foundational note of human sweat. Thousands upon thousands of unwashed bodies crammed into a space far too small for them. There's the sharp, briny tang of the sea and rotting fish guts blowing up from the port, mingling with the dust from the unpaved streets. Add to that the metallic, coppery scent of animal sacrifice from the countless temples, the smoke from thousands of charcoal braziers, and the ever-present, sickly sweet odor of human waste and disease. The great plague that sifted through the city a generation ago is a living memory, a ghost that haunts every cough and fever. You see the flies, fat and lazy, buzzing around the open-air butcher stalls and the gutters overflowing with refuse. You taste the grit in your teeth, the dust that coats everything. Your wine is thin and sour, cut with seawater to preserve it, and the bread is coarse. This isn't the idealized Athens of your imagination. This is a city under siege, not just by Sparta, but by itself. The noise is constant. The clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the shouting of merchants in the marketplace, the endless chattering drone of the assembly, the ecclesia, where any male citizen with too much time and too many opinions can go to yell about state policy. It's a democracy, it told, the glory of your city. But from down here, it feels more like a permanent, citywide argument that no one can ever win. Rumors spread faster than wildfires. The Spartans have landed a force to the north. The Persians are funding our enemies. Our allies in the Delian League are on the verge of revolt. A bad omen was seen over the Acropolis. The gods are angry. Every piece of news, real or imagined, sends a fresh ripple of panic through the populace. You've lost family members in this war. Brothers, fathers, cousins. They died in places you can't pronounce, for reasons that are becoming increasingly unclear. You were supposed to be the school of Hellas, a shining city on a hill. Now you're just tired. Weary down to your bones. Into this pressure cooker of fear, paranoia, and exhaustion steps Alcibiades. And you can't take your eyes off him. He's not just handsome. That word is too small, too common. His beauty is a physical event. Plutarch, writing centuries later, would say that it bloomed with him through every stage of his life, from boyhood to manhood. When he walks through the agora, conversations falter. People just stop and stare. He has the kind of effortless, infuriating grace that makes you acutely aware of your own awkwardness, your own sweat-stained tunic and calloused hands. He moves like he owns the very ground he walks on, because in a way, he does. He is fantastically, obscenely wealthy. While you worry about the price of barley, he's breeding racehorses. Not just one or two. He enters 7 chariots in a single Olympic Games, an act of such monumental look-at-me extravagance that it's still being talked about. He doesn't just enter them. He takes first, second, and fourth place. It's a statement. Not of athletic prowess, but of financial brute force. He's telling the entire Greek world, I can afford to do this. You can't. His parties are legendary orgies of excess that you only hear about in scandalized whispers, the finest wines, the most exotic foods, the most beautiful companions of every gender, companions of every gender. While the city is on rations, Alcibiades lives in a different reality, a bubble of pure indulgence. And he's connected. Oh, is he connected? After his father was killed in battle, he was raised in the house of the great Pericles, the architect of Athens' golden age. Think about that. He grew up at the very center of power, listening to the most important men in the city debate strategy and philosophy over dinner. He absorbed statecraft and rhetoric through his pores. He wasn't just on the guest list, he was family. He was Athens' favorite son, its golden boy, its prince. He's also famously the student. And let's not be coy, the lover of Socrates. The wisest man in Athens is utterly captivated by him. You see them together sometimes, the ugly, pug-nosed old philosopher and the beautiful, arrogant young aristocrat. Socrates is trying to save his soul to teach him virtue and temperance. It's a noble project. It is also a spectacular failure. Alcibiades treats Socrates' wisdom like another one of his luxuries. He enjoys the attention, the intellectual sparring, but the lessons never stick. He's more interested in the philosopher than the philosophy. For Socrates, it's a tragic, unrequited intellectual love affair. For Alcibiades, it's just another conquest. He has a lisp, a slight affectation that on anyone else would be a weakness, a point of mockery. On him, it's just another quirk that people find charming. He's a walking, talking embodiment of privilege. And he knows it. He revels in it. He is utterly, completely, and unapologetically in love with himself. His early life is a string of anecdotes that should have been seen as giant, flashing warning signs, but were instead passed off as the charming excesses of a spirited youth. There's the time he gets into a wrestling match in the street and, about to be thrown, bites his opponent's arm. The other guy cries out, "You bite like a woman, Alcibiades," and he coolly replies, "No, like a lion." There's the story of his dog, a magnificent animal that cost a fortune, whose beautiful tail he cuts off. When his friends are horrified and ask him why he would do such a thing, he just laughs and says, "It's just what I wanted." I'd rather the Athenians spent their time talking about this than saying something worse about me. Think about the psychology of that. He mutilates his own dog as a public relations move. A dead cat on the table to distract from his other, less amusing behaviors. He punches his future father-in-law, one of the richest men in Athens, on a bet. He doesn't apologize. He just shows up at the man's house the next day and offers himself up to be flogged. The father-in-law, so taken aback by this bizarre display of faux contrition, is not only charmed, but offers him his daughter's hand in marriage. He publicly humiliates a respectable citizen who is in love with him, forcing the man to run through the marketplace naked, only to then cast him aside. He openly and flagrantly cheats on his wife, a woman from one of the most powerful families in the city, bringing his courtesans into their own home. When she, a woman of spirit, finally has enough and goes to the magistrate to file for divorce, a brave and public act for a woman of her station, he marches into the court, physically picks her up, and carries her home through the crowds like a sack of grain, and everyone just lets him. Because he's Alcibiades. His transgressions aren't seen as crimes, they're seen as performance art. You, the average Athenian, watch all this from a distance. And what do you feel? Is it disgust? Envy? A little bit of both? He's infuriating, but he's also exciting. He's a splash of vibrant, dangerous color in your drab, fearful world. The old guard, the cautious, conservative politicians, they bore you. They talk of budgets and logistics and defensive postures. They are personified by the figure of Nicias, a man so pious and risk-averse he seems to be perpetually waiting for a bad omen. Nicias is a respected general, a decent man, but he is fundamentally uninspiring. He is the voice of caution, the voice of your father telling you to be careful. And you're tired of being careful. You've been careful your whole life, and what has it gotten you? A seemingly endless war and the constant threat of starvation. Alcibiades offers something else. He offers audacity. He speaks of glory, of expansion, of decisive, glorious victory. He doesn't talk like a politician, he talks like a demigod. His speeches in the assembly are masterpieces of manipulation. He knows you. He knows your fears, your resentments, and your secret desperate hopes. He appeals not to your reason, but to your pride and your greed. He tells you that you are Athenians, the masters of the sea, the envy of the world. Why are you cowering behind your walls? Why are you listening to these old, timid men who counsel inaction? Destiny awaits. Riches await. Empire awaits. All you have to do is reach out and take it. And he, Alcibiades, will show you how. His political career begins in earnest by sabotaging the very thing that might have saved you. Nicias, after years of grinding warfare, manages to broker a peace treaty with Sparta. It's a fragile, imperfect thing, but it's a respite, a chance to breathe. It's named the Peace of Nicias. Alcibiades, a young man with no real military command or political standing yet, sees this peace not as a blessing for Athens, but as an obstacle to his own ambition. A state of peace offers no opportunity for a would-be Alexander to win glory and power, so he sets out to systematically destroy it. He feels personally slighted because the Spartans in their negotiations dealt with the established leaders like Nicias and not with him, a young upstart from a family traditionally hostile to Sparta. His ego is bruised. And for that reason, an entire generation's hope for peace will be sacrificed. He begins a shadow game of diplomacy and deceit. He secretly communicates with the Argives, traditional enemies of Sparta, encouraging them to form a new alliance against the Lacedaemonians. Then, when a Spartan delegation comes to Athens to finalize the terms of the peace and smooth over lingering issues, he plays his masterstroke. He meets with the Spartan ambassadors in private. The night before they are to address the Athenian assembly, he turns on the full force of his charm, that weaponized charisma that no one seems able to resist. He tells them he is their friend, that he wants to help them. But, he warns, the Athenian assembly is a fickle and dangerous beast. Don't tell them you have come with full powers to negotiate, he advises. If you do, they'll bully you and try to wring all sorts of unreasonable concessions from you. Just tell them you're here to discuss the issues, not to make a final decision. Trust me. I'll speak on your behalf, and I'll persuade the Athenians to give you everything you want. The Spartans, for whatever reason, believe him. Maybe they're intimidated by the reputation of the Athenian mob. Maybe they're just dazzled by the sheer force of his personality. They agree. The next day in the assembly, the ambassadors are called forward. One of the Athenian leaders asked them directly, "Have you come with full and final powers to negotiate?" And the Spartans, following Alcibiades' script, dutifully reply, "No, we have only come to discuss and report back." Alcibiades leaps to his feet, a mask of theatrical fury on his beautiful face. He denounces the Spartans with a venom that shocks the entire assembly. "What is this treachery?" he thunders, pointing at the bewildered ambassadors. "These men say one thing in private and another in public. Yesterday they told me they had full powers, and now they stand before the people of Athens and deny it. How can we trust a word these perjurers say? They have not come to make peace. They have come to deceive us, to waste our time while they prepare for war." The assembly erupts in outrage. The Spartan ambassadors are completely discredited, humiliated. Nixias, who had staked his entire political reputation on this peace process, is left standing there, speechless and utterly undermined. In the chaos, Alcibiades proposes his own policy. Forget the peace with Sparta. Let's form a new, aggressive alliance with Argos, Mantinia, and the Lys, and take the fight back to the Peloponnese. The motion carries. The peace of Nicias is effectively dead. Alcibiades, at a stroke, has made himself the most influential voice in Athenian foreign policy. He did it through a bald-faced lie, for no other reason than to satisfy his own bruised ego and clear a path for his own ambition. He has restarted the war. And you in the assembly, you cheered him on. You felt the thrill of his righteous anger, the seductive power of his call to action. You felt, for a moment, powerful again. You didn't realize you were just a puppet in his private drama. This sets the stage for the grandest, most catastrophic act of hubris in the history of Athens, and perhaps in the history of democracy itself, the Sicilian expedition. For a few years, the war sputters along in the Peloponnese with mixed results. Alcibiades gets himself elected as a general, a strategos, and his performance is, at the Battle of Mantinia, the alliance he so cleverly engineered is crushed by the Spartans. It's a major defeat for Athens and its allies. Alcibiades, who was one of the commanders, escapes any real blame. His personal bravery isn't in question, but his strategic judgment is. Yet, his star continues to rise. The defeat only seems to whet his appetite for a bigger, more spectacular gamble. He needs a victory so undeniable it will silence all his critics and make him the undisputed master of Athens. And then, an opportunity presents itself. An embassy arrives from a city you've barely heard of, a place called Segesta on the island of Sicily. It's a world away. Sicily is the Wild West, a land of rich city-states, mostly of Dorian origin like Sparta, and native tribes. It's a hornet's nest of complex local rivalries. The Segestans are having a border dispute with their neighbors, the Selenantines, who are being backed by the most powerful city on the island, Syracuse. Syracuse is a monster, a city nearly as large and powerful as Athens itself. The Segestans come to you begging for help. They appeal to old tenuous alliances, and, most importantly, they promise money. Lots of it. They claim their city and its temples are bursting with treasure. More than enough to fund a major Athenian intervention. For most of the older, wiser heads in the assembly, this is a non-starter. You are still bogged down in a war with Sparta, right on your doorstep. Your resources are stretched thin. Your manpower is depleted. The idea of opening up a second, massive front, hundreds of miles away across the open sea against a powerful and unknown enemy is strategic insanity. Nicias, the voice of caution, argues passionately against it. It is a reckless, dangerous folly, a distraction from the real threat at home. To him, it is a classic case of imperial overreach, the very thing that brings great powers to their knees. But then, Alcibiades gets up to speak, and the mood in the assembly begins to shift. You can feel the energy change, a current of something hot and dangerous running through the crowd on the Pnyx Hill. He stands there, radiant with confidence, and he paints you a picture. It's a vision of breathtaking ambition. Sicily, he says, is not a risk. It is a prize. It's low-hanging fruit. An island divided against itself, ripe for the taking. The stories of Syracusan power are exaggerated, he claims. They are a mixed rabble, not a unified power like Athens. And the wealth. Think of the wealth. Not just the supposed treasure of Segesta, but the grain fields, the timber, the strategic position that would make Athens the undisputed master of the entire Mediterranean. Conquering Sicily, he argues, isn't a diversion from the war with Sparta. It's the key to winning it. With the resources of Sicily, you could crush Sparta once and for all. It would be the final, glorious step in the destiny of your empire. He looks out over your faces, the thousands of you hungry for a victory, tired of the stalemate. He speaks directly to your desires. To the young, he promises adventure and glory and the spoils of war. To the old, he promises security and a final end to the conflict that has plagued their lives. To the merchants, he promises new markets and untold profits. To the ambitious, he promises new lands to govern, new power to wield. He makes it sound not just possible, but easy, inevitable. He scoffs at the caution of Nicias, framing it as the timidity of a tired old man who has lost his nerve. The nature of this city, he proclaims, is to be always active. If we cease to be active, we will cease to be. We must not listen to these arguments for inaction, for they are nothing more than a pretty excuse for cowardice. The speech is a triumph. He has taken a strategically insane proposal and made it sound like a divine mission. The raw, intoxicating power of his ambition fills the air. You feel it in your chest. The caution of Nicias now seems small, petty, unworthy of a great city. Why shouldn't you reach for more? Who are the Spartans? Who are the Syracusans to stand in the way of Athens? The debate is scheduled. A vote will be held. The city is buzzing with what they're calling Sicily fever. Everyone is talking about it, drawing maps in the dirt, imagining the riches they'll bring back. It feels like the whole city has been swept up in a collective delusion, a gold rush of the mind. The day of the final debate arrives. The assembly is packed. The air is electric. Nixius makes one last desperate attempt to stop the madness. He stands up and tries a bit of reverse psychology. He says, "Fine. If you are so determined to go, then you must understand the true scale of the undertaking. This cannot be a small expedition. We will need at least 100 triremes, the best in the fleet. We will need 5,000 of our finest hoplites, plus archers and slingers. We will need a massive supply train, vast amounts of money, and the most experienced commanders." He lays out a list of requirements so enormous, so prohibitively expensive, that he believes it will surely shock the assembly back to its senses. No one, he thinks, will vote for such a colossal, ruinously costly gamble. He has misjudged the mood completely. He has misjudged the effect of Alcibiades. The silence that follows Naius's speech is not the one he was hoping for. It's not the stunned, awkward quiet of a party-goer who has just been handed a bill he can't possibly pay. It's the other kind of silence, the one that comes before the thunder. It's the intake of breath of a predator before the pounce. You can feel a new energy ripple through the assembly, a current of manic glee. Nicias, the old, cautious, respected Nicias, has just stood up and, in his attempt to douse the flames, has accidentally thrown a tanker truck's servocos of gasoline onto the bonfire. He wanted to scare you with the price tag. But you, the Athenian citizen, are not scared. You are thrilled. You don't hear prohibitively expensive. You hear an investment in glory. You don't hear a logistical nightmare. You hear a fleet so vast the sea itself will groan under its weight. He listed the best ships, the finest soldiers, the most experienced commanders, and you thought, yes, good, all of that. We deserve it. He has inadvertently given your collective fever dream a detailed, itemized budget. He has legitimized the fantasy, and then the noise begins. It starts as a low murmur and swells into a roar. They're not shouting him down. They're cheering him on. Men are on their feet, stamping, yelling their approval. They are not voting for Alcibiades' vague, glittering vision anymore. They are voting for Nicias' detailed, terrifyingly specific, and therefore achievable vision. It's a masterclass in how to fail upwards by trying to make the expedition impossible. Nicias has made it inevitable. Someone shouts, "Let Nicias himself name the numbers." The cry is taken up by the crowd. The assembly officials, seeing the will of them all, put it to a vote. The hands shoot up. It's unanimous. Nicias, you poor doomed bastard. You are now personally responsible for planning the very catastrophe you tried to prevent. You can see the color drain from his face. He's a hostage to his own rhetoric. He tries to protest, to argue, but it's like trying to reason with a tidal wave. The mob has tasted blood, and it wants more. So Nicias, trapped, defeated, does as he's told. He gives them the numbers. 100 of Athens' best triremes, thousands of allied ships, 5,000 of our own hoplites, the best of the best, plus auxiliaries, archers, slingers. The numbers are staggering. Each one he reads out is met with a fresh wave of delirious applause. The cost will be astronomical, enough to drain the treasury that Pericles so carefully built, the one that has seen you through decades of war. But no one cares. You are in the grip of what the Greeks called pathos, a longing, a yearning for something just out of reach. Sicily is a golden apple, and you are all reaching for it, convinced of your own invincibility. And then comes the final, perfect, darkly hilarious twist. The assembly, in its infinite democratic wisdom, decides it needs a command structure worthy of this grand enterprise. They can't just give it to Alcibiades. He's too young, too reckless. They can't just give it to Nathiasides. He's too old, too cautious, and clearly doesn't even want to go. So they appoint 3 generals. First, Alcibiades. Of course. It's his party. He is the engine of this whole mad project, the beautiful, shining face of Athenian ambition. He will provide the Ellen, the daring, the inspiration. Second, Nicias. Yes, Nicias. The man who just begged you not to go. The man who considers the entire expedition to be a one-way ticket to Hades. He is appointed co-commander. Why? For his experience, his caution, his piety. He is to be the brake pedal on Alcibiades' accelerator. You are essentially shackling your most optimistic and your most pessimistic commanders together and telling them to steer the ship of state through a hurricane. What could possibly go wrong? And third, there is Lamachus. You should probably feel sorriest for Lamachus. He is a genuine, dyed-in-the-wool, professional soldier. He's not a political celebrity like Alcibiades, nor a wealthy, cautious oligarch like Nicias. He's just a man who is very, very good at fighting. He is poor, he is experienced, and he is competent. He is the only one elevation map of the 3 who is probably qualified for the job in a straightforward, non-insane way. He is appointed as the tiebreaker, the professional who is supposed to mediate between Mr. Glory and Mr. Gloom. He is, in effect, the designated adult in a car with 2 squabbling, godlike children who are holding the steering wheel. His fate is perhaps the most tragic of all. because it is the most anonymous. So the decision is made. The greatest military force ever assembled by a single Greek city is to be launched. The die is cast, and as the city buzzes with a new frenetic energy, the sound of shipwrights, of armorers, of merchants, haggling over grain prices, a sound of a city mobilizing for its date with destiny, the gods decide to offer Yeg opinion. You wake up one morning in late spring 415 BC. The air is warm, thick with the smell of olive blossoms, and the usual Athenian cocktail of baking bread, open sewers, and tanneries. You walk out of your door ready to go about your business, and you stop. The Herma is gone. Well, not gone. Mutilated. Let's be clear about what a Herma is. It's not some grand, classical statue in a temple. They are everywhere. At crossroads, in front of public buildings, in front of private homes, they are square stone pillars. And atop each pillar is a carved head of the god Hermes. And projecting from the front of the pillar, at about waist height, is a large erect stone phallus. They are guardian signposts and good luck charms all rolled into one. They are a patrapaic, a fancy word meaning they ward off evil. They are so common, so much a part of the daily streetscape, that you barely even notice them anymore. They are the background radiation of Athenian piety. But today you notice the face of your local Herma has been chiseled away, the nose smashed, the beard a mess of broken stone, and the phallus has been hammered off. You look down the street. The next one is the same. And the next. A cold knot of dread tightens in your stomach. This wasn't sluckchine ye vandalism. This was systematic. This was organized. As the city wakes, the news spreads like a plague. From the Piraeus to the Acropolis, it's the same story. Almost every single Herma in Athens has been defaced in a single night. An organized gang, or gangs, moving silently and efficiently through the sleeping city, armed with hammers and a terrifying sense of purpose. This is not a prank. This is a message. This is sacrilege on an industrial scale. The city grinds to a halt. The cheerful, arrogant buzz of war preparation is replaced by a low, fearful hum. People gather in the agora, not to boast, but to whisper. The air, once thick with confidence, is now soured with paranoia. Who did this? And why? The timing is no coincidence. The fleet, your fleet, the great Sicilian expedition, is just days from sailing. This is an omen. A terrible, terrible omen. Hermes is the god of travelers, of commerce, of tricksters and messengers. To attack him, Mutaden bade on the very eve of the greatest journey the city has ever undertaken. It's a direct, divine slap in the face. The gods are not pleased. Which gods, and who provoked them? The theories fly thick and fast. It's a Spartan plot, of course. Their agents tried to stop the expedition by terrifying the populace. Or no, It's the oligarchs, the anti-democratic factions within Athens itself, trying to destabilize the state and seize power in the ensuing chaos. Oh, maybe it's the Corinthians, or the Syracusans, or some other enemy you haven't even thought of. The finger of blame points everywhere and nowhere. Everyone is a suspect. You are your neighbor, the one who was always a bit too quiet, a bit too pious, or not pious enough. Did you hear him sneak out last night? What are those marks on his hands? The social fabric of the city, stretched taut by years of war and political strife, begins to fray. The assembly convenes, not in triumph, but in terror. Informants are promised immunity and huge cash rewards to come forward. A board of investigators is set up. This is now a full-blown witch hunt. And in the center of this swirling vortex of fear and suspicion, one name keeps coming up. Alcibiades. It makes a certain kind of sense, doesn't it? Who else is arrogant enough, impious enough, and has a large enough retinue of drunken, aristocratic thugs to pull something like this off? You've heard the stories, the parties that last for days. The casual blasphemy, the mockery of old traditions. His circle of young, rich, and bored followers who would do anything to impress him. Smashing up a few hundred statues for a laugh. It sounds exactly like something they would do. It fits the public profile of Alcibiades perfectly. The beautiful, brilliant, and utterly sacrilegious golden boy. His enemies, the ones he humiliated in the assembly, see their chance. They don't have any evidence, not yet, but they don't need it. They have the fear of the crowd. They begin to fan the flames, quietly at first, then more boldly. They whisper in the agora. They make speeches in the assembly. They link the mutilation of the Herme to Alcibiades' known character. It's a classic political smear campaign, and it's lethally effective. Then, a second, even more toxic accusation surfaces. An informant, a slave, comes forward. He claims that it's not just the Herme. He claims that Alcibiades and his friends have been performing mock religious ceremonies in private houses. Specifically, they are accused of profaning the Eleusinian mysteries. This is a charge of a different magnitude. The Eleusinian mysteries were the most sacred and secret religious rites in all of Greece. They were a multi-day ritual celebrating the story of Demeter and Persephone, promising initiates a form of rebirth and a blessed afterlife. To be an initiate was a profound, life-changing experience. The penalty for revealing the secrets of the mysteries or for parodying them was death. It was the ultimate blasphemy, a spiritual and civic crime of the highest order. The slave alleges that Alcibiades, dressed as the Hierophant, the high priest, presided over a drunken parody of the sacred rites for his friends. He mimicked the holy prayers, displayed the secret objects, and revealed the unrevealable. Whether it's true or not is almost irrelevant. The accusation lands like a thunderbolt. Mutilating statues is one thing. It's a crime against the city's luck. Profaning the mysteries is a crime against the city's soul. Now Alcibiades is in real trouble. The two charges, the Herme and the mysteries, become conflated in the public mind. One is a public, anonymous act of vandalism, The other, a private, specific act of blasphemy. But together, they paint a picture of a man who holds nothing sacred, a man capable of anything. He is the poster boy for impiety, the perfect scapegoat for a city terrified that it has offended the gods. His enemies press their advantage. His enemies press their advantage. A prominent orator named Androcles, a man Alcibiades had personally targeted in the past, leads the charge. He brings forward more witnesses of the slaves, lowlifes, people with grudges to testify against Alcibiades and his friends. The evidence is flimsy, contradictory, and likely coerced. But in the current climate of hysteria, it's enough. The cry goes up for Alcibiades to be put on trial for his life. You are Alcibiades. You are at the Piraeus, the port of Athens. The magnificent fleet is all but ready. The triremes are drawn up on the beach, their newly painted eyes staring out as Sacertorios to sea. The supplies are being loaded. The soldiers, your soldiers, are gathering their loyalty to you. Absolute. They see you not as a blasphemer, but as their ticket to wealth and glory in Sicily. You are their charismatic leader, and they are ready to follow you to the end of the earth. And behind you, in the city, the walls are closing in. The democracy you so expertly manipulated is turning on you. Your enemies, whom you thought you had vanquished, are sharpening their knives. What do? You do the smart thing. You demand an immediate trial. Right here, right now, before the fleet sails. You know the charges are politically motivated. You are confident you can discredit the witnesses and expose the conspiracy against you. Crucially, you have the army on your side. The thousands of soldiers, padros, and sailors massed at the Piraeus are your power base. They are making it very clear to the assembly that they want their commander. If you are executed, or even just delayed, their morale will collapse. They came here to follow you. With this leverage, you believe you can face down your accusers and win. You stand before the assembly, and you make your case. It is a perfectly logical argument. How can you send a general, you ask, on a campaign of this magnitude, with such a terrible charge hanging over his head? Either I am guilty or I am innocent. Let us decide now. If I am guilty, punish me. But if I am innocent, let me sail with a clear name, without the threat of my enemies using my absence to destroy me. It is a sound, rational, and compelling plea. And it is, of course, rejected. Your enemies are more cunning than you gave them credit for. They are not fools. They know that a trial held now, with the army breathing down their necks, would result in your acquittal. So they come up with a brilliant, insidious counter-proposal. An orator named Pythonicus, one of their front men, stands up and says in a voice dripping with false reason, Alcibiades is right to want to clear his name, but we cannot delay the expedition. The wind is fair. Our allies are waiting. To delay now would be a strategic disaster. Let Alcibiades sail with the fleet as planned. He is too vital to the mission. Let him go and win us Sicily. He can face his trial when he returns, haloed in victory. What jury would convict a returning hero? It is a perfect political trap. It sounds so reasonable, so patriotic. It allows them to appear magnanimous, to be putting the needs of the state first. But you see it for what it is. It is a death sentence. Deferred. They are letting you go. Yes. But they are letting you go so that they can try you in absentia. Once you are hundreds of miles away, once the army is no longer a political threat in Athens, they will be free to manipulate the legal process. They can find new witnesses, whip up public sentiment, and secure a conviction without you even being there to defend yourself. You will be a hero one day, a convicted traitor the next. But the Assembly, eager to both launch its precious fleet and see the drama resolved, buys it. They vote for the compromise. You will sail. The trial will wait. You have been outmaneuvered. You have no choice but to accept. To refuse to go now would look like an admission of guilt. You are trapped. You must lead an expedition for a city that is actively plotting your destruction. And so, the day of departure arrives. It is one of the most sublime and sickening spectacles in the history of Athens. The entire population of the city, citizens and foreigners alike, empties out and streams down to the Piraeus to watch. It is a national holiday, a religious festival, and a military parade, all in one. The harbor is a forest of masts. 134 triremes, the best of the Athenian fleet, gleaming with fresh paint and pitch. Hundreds more allied ships and supply vessels. Tens of thousands of men. The sun glints off 1,000 bronze helmets. The sound is a symphony of ambition. The creak of rigging, the slap of water against 1,000 hulls, the low murmur of the vast crowd, the sharp commands of the boatswains. You, Alcibiades, stand on the deck of your flagship, alongside Nicias and Lamachus. Nicias looks like he's attending his own funeral. Lamachus looks like he's ready to get to work. And you have to play the part. The star of the show. You are the glorious, confident commander, the embodiment of Athens' golden hopes. You smile, you wave, you project an aura of unshakable self-assurance. But inside, you must feel a cold, creeping dread. Every cheer from the crowd is a potential juror your enemies will turn against you. A trumpet call signals for silence. A hush falls over the massive crowd. Prayers are offered up, not in the usual separate way on each ship, but in unison, led by a herald. The entire harbor, the entire army, the entire city prays together. It's a moment of profound theatrical unity. They pray for a safe and victorious voyage. The irony is so thick you could choke on it. They are praying to the very gods they believe you have profaned. For the success of a mission led by you, the accused blasphemer. Then a libation is poured. On every deck, the captains and soldiers, using gold and silver cups, pour a stream of wine into the sea, an offering to the gods. You pour yours. Nicias pours his. Lamachus pours his. Then the paean, the hymn to Apollo, is sung, its solemn, ancient melody echoing across the water. And then the ships begin to move. One by one, the triremes pull out of the harbor, not in a chaotic rush, but in a single, orderly column. They proceed out into the Saronic Gulf, and then, once in open water, they begin to race each other as far as the island of Aegina, a final swaggering display of their speed and skill. It is a sight of breathtaking power and beauty. Thucydides, who witnessed it, called it the most magnificent and costly armament that had ever been sent out by a single Hellenic power. It was a spectacle, he said, that was more for display than for war, a demonstration of power and wealth aimed as much at the audience back home as at the enemy in Sicily. You watched the coastline of Attica, your home recede. You are finally on your way. You are in your element, at sea in command, sailing towards a war you know you can win. For a moment, you can almost forget the rot you've left behind. You have a job to do. The fleet makes its way, island by island, across the Aegean, and then across the Ionian Sea, to the southern coast of Italy. Here, you get your first taste of reality. The glorious promises of your allies in Segesta, the ones who promised to bankroll the entire war, turn out to be, to put it mildly, optimistic. They show you their temple treasury, which contains a grand total of about 30 talents. It's a pittance. The rest of their fabulous wealth was a theatrical illusion, gold-plated silver plate borrowed from neighboring towns to fool your ambassadors. The entire premise of a locally funded war collapses on day one. It's the 5th century BC equivalent of arriving for your cushy new job and finding out the company is bankrupt and your office is a dumpster. Nicias, predictably, sees this as his chance. This is it, he argues. The whole thing is a fraud. We should make a show of force, sail past Syracuse to intimidate them, and then go home. We declare a symbolic victory and cut our losses before they mount. Lamachus, the soldier, has a different idea. No, he says. We are here. The enemy is not yet fully prepared. We should strike Syracuse directly, and strike now. A swift, decisive blow while they are in disarray. And you, Alcibiades, you have a third plan. The political plan. The subtle plan. You argue against both. Going home now, you say, would be a humiliation. Attacking Syracuse directly is too risky. Instead, you propose a diplomatic offensive. You will sail pulleys around Sicily, using your personal charm and the power of Athenian rhetoric to detach Syracuse's allies, to win over neutral cities, to build a coalition. You will isolate Syracuse, surround it with your new friends, and then, when it is alone and friendless, you will crush it. It is a plan that plays to your strengths. Diplomacy, persuasion, and a grand strategic vision. And since Lamachus, the poor professional, is outvoted by the two political celebrities, your plan is the one that is adopted. and it starts to work. You sail to the city of Naxos, and they join you. You sail to Katana, and through a typical piece of Alcibiades trickery sneaking into the city, while the citizens are listening to you give a speech outside, you win them over too. Katana becomes your main base of operations. You are doing exactly what you said you would do. You are winning the war without fighting. Your strategy is being vindicated. You are proving your worth. You are, for a fleeting moment, on top of the world. And it is at this exact moment, at the height of your initial success, that the other shoe drops. A ship is spotted on the horizon, sailing from the east. It's an Athenian trireme, but it's not a supply ship or a messenger. You recognize the livery. It's the Salamina, the state vessel. The one they use for official business. The one they use to arrest generals. It docks in the harbor at Katana. The officers come ashore. They don't put you in chains. They are under orders not to provoke your army. The message is quiet, almost polite, but it is non-negotiable. The assembly in Athens, in your absence, has proceeded with your trial. New witnesses were produced. Public hysteria was stoked to a fever pitch. You and many of your friends have been found guilty of profaning the mysteries and, by association, mutilating the Hermes. You have been condemned to death. The Salamina is here to escort you, and the other accused soldiers back to Athens to face your execution. The air on the Sicilian beach grows thin. The cheerful sounds of the camp men gambling, sharpening blades, complaining about the rations seem to be coming from a different world, miles away. Your world has shrunk to the space between you and the captain of the Salamina. His face is a mask of bureaucratic regret. It's the face of a man who has to deliver a subpoena to a god, and he's not enjoying it one bit. Death. It's a word you flirted with on the battlefield, courted in drunken revelries, and laughed at in the assembly. It was always an abstract concept, a dramatic flourish for a speech. Now it's here. Delivered by courier, it has paperwork. You glance at your co-commander, Nicias. He's looking at the ground, a study in pious misery. He probably thinks this is the gods' just punishment for your hubris. He's not wrong, of course, but his sanctimony is particularly grating right now. Lamachus, the gruff professional, just watches you, his expression unreadable. He's a soldier. He understands chains of command, orders and consequences. He's waiting to see what the politician does. And you are, above all else, a politician. Your mind, that glittering, overclocked engine of self-preservation, kicks into high gear. You don't panic. You don't rage. Panic is for men who have run out of options. You have never run out of options. You process the variables. Variable 1, the charge. Profaning the mysteries. Mutilating the Hermes. A cocktail of sacrilege and public vandalism, shaken by political opportunism and stirred with mass hysteria. It's nonsense. You might be guilty of the first. Your memory of that particular party is shall we say impressionistic, but the second is absurd. Smashing the city's good luck statues right before a massive naval expedition? It's not just impious, it's tactically moronic. It's the kind of thing your enemies would do to frame you, which you realize with a cold flash of clarity is exactly what happened. They didn't just want you out of the way, they wanted you gone. Permanently. Variable 2. The trial. A farce, conducted in your absence. Your political enemies, the Androcleses, the Thessaluses, had the stage all to themselves. Without your glamour to dazzle the crowd, your silver tongue to tie them in knots, what chance did your supporters have? They whipped the mob into a frenzy, produced witness from the city's ample supply of perjurers, and secured their verdict. It's a legal lynching. Variable 3. Variable 3. The escort. The Salamina. The fastest ship in the Athenian navy. It's not here to fight. It's a glorified paddy wagon. They could have sent a detachment of Marines to arrest you on the spot, drag you aboard in chains, but they didn't. Why? Because they're afraid. They're afraid of you, but more than that, they're afraid of your army. The men here signed on for this mad venture because of you. They are loyal to the promise of Sicilian gold. Yes, but they are bound by the charisma of Alcibiades. A violent arrest could trigger a mutiny. The entire expedition could collapse before it even truly begins. So, they ask, politely, would you mind awfully coming back with us to be executed? We've sharpened the hemlock. It's the most Athenian thing imaginable. A death sentence wrapped in a veneer of democratic process and civility. You give the captain of the Salamina your most charming, most reasonable smile. The one that has launched 1,000 ships and opened 1,000 wallets. It feels like stretching a cold muscle. Of course, you say, your voice smooth as oil. An absurd misunderstanding. But the law is the law. We must all answer to the people. You can feel Nicias flinch beside you. He's horrified that you're agreeing, and even more horrified that you sound so sincere. You hold up a hand. However, we're in the midst of a campaign. To remove myself and the other accused soldiers at this critical juncture would be irresponsible. It would damage morale. You gesture vaguely towards the sprawling camp. Let us follow you back to Athens in our own ship. We will sail in convoy. It presents a better image, you understand. Unity. Order. We wouldn't want the Syracusans to think there's trouble in the ranks, would we? It's a masterful piece of bullshit. You are proposing a low-speed, long-distance chase across the Ionian Sea. The captain of the Salamina knows it. You know he knows it. But his orders are to bring you back without provoking the army. Your proposal allows him to follow the letter of his instructions, if not the spirit. He's a bureaucrat, not a hero. He wants to be able to write a report that says subject complied with the initial request. He agrees. It's a fatal mistake. For Athens. For Athens. For the journey north begins. The state trireme, the Salamina, sails ahead, a sleek gray dog on a very long leash. Your ship, with your most loyal companions and the other condemned men, follows behind. For a day, for 2 days, you play the part of the dutiful citizen. You keep pace. You wave. You project an aura of calm cooperation. The mood on your ship is tense. Your friends are terrified. They are staring death in the face. They look to you, their brilliant, invincible leader, to save them. You spend your time walking the deck, talking to them, not with false hope, but with cold, hard logic. Do you think the assembly that condemned us without a fair trial will give us one when we arrive? You ask them. Do you think the mob, frothing for our blood, will suddenly discover a taste for due process? We are dead men if we land at Piraeus. Our only hope is to not land at Piraeus. It's not a difficult argument to win. You wait for the right moment. As your small convoy sails up the coast of Italy, you put in at the port of Thurii, a place with old ties to Athens, but far enough away to have its own mind. The Salaminia waits for you in the harbor. Under the cover of darkness, you and your condemned comrades simply walk off your ship, melt into the back alleys of the city, and disappear. The next morning, the crew of the Salaminia wakes to find your ship still at anchor, but its most precious cargo gone. They search the city, of course. They make threats. They plead. But the Thurians just shrug. The officials claim with perfectly straight faces that they have no idea where you've gone. You've bought the right people, promised the right things. Or maybe they just don't feel like handing over a guest to a foreign executioner. The Salamania eventually gives up and sails home, empty-handed. You can almost picture the captain's report. Subject unexpectedly absconded. Extensive search proved negative. Returning to base, the fallout in Athens will be spectacular. The rage, the recriminations. Your property will be confiscated. The priests of Eleusis will be instructed to stand on a hill and formally curse your name, their voices drifting out over the Aegean. You are now, officially, an enemy of the state, an outlaw, a traitor. So, what do you do? Where does a man like you go when he can't go home? You could go to Persia. Live out your days as an exotic pet of the great king, drowning in gold and wine, whispering advice into his ear. It's tempting. You could go to one of the independent Greek cities in Italy, become a high-priced consultant, a mercenary general, a comfortable, but ultimately small, existence. But you are Alcibiades. You don't do small. You don't do comfortable. You do spectacular. You have been rejected by Athens. So you will go to the one place on earth that Athens fears most. The one place that defines itself by its opposition to everything you once represented. You go to Sparta. Think about the sheer, monumental audacity of this move. It's like the Pope, excommunicated, seeking asylum with Martin Luther. It's like the head of the CIA defecting to the KGB at the height of the Cold War. You are not just running from your enemies. You are running directly into the arms of your city's mortal foe, a state with which Athens is actively, if intermittently, at war. Your journey is clandestine. You make your way across the sea, landing on the Peloponnesian coast. You send a messenger ahead requesting safe conduct. The Spartans are, to put it mildly, suspicious. This is the man who sabotaged the peace treaty named after their king. This is the architect of the anti-Spartan alliance in the Peloponnese. This is the flamboyant, arrogant Athenian aristocrat who embodies everything they are trained from birth to despise. Their first instinct is probably to kill you the moment you set foot on the Laconican soil. But they are also pragmatic, and they are curious. What could this man Athens' brightest star possibly want with them? They grant you safe passage. Your arrival in Sparta must have been a spectacle of mutual disgust. You, accustomed to the vibrant, noisy, colorful chaos of Athens, the marble and the markets, the theaters and the brothels, the smell of sea salt and baking bread, and 10,000 opinions all being shouted at once. And you arrive in Sparta. There is no color here. There is gray rock, brown earth, and the flat, dull red of the cloaks worn by its citizens. There is no art, no theater, no philosophy. There are barracks. There are training grounds. There is the river Eurotas, cold and swift. The city smells of iron, sweat, and the infamous black broth, a hideous concoction of pork, salt, vinegar, and blood that even you, with your iron stomach, would struggle to swallow. The people are like their city. They are laconic. A word derived from their own homeland, Laconia. They speak in clipped, terse phrases. They do not waste words. They do not show emotion. They stare at you with a mixture of contempt and suspicion. You are a peacock in a land of crows. Your fine clothes, your long, perfumed hair, your easy, aristocratic grace, it's all an affront to their entire way of life. You are decadence and individualism personified. They are austerity in the collective incarnate. You are brought before the Ephors, the 5 elected magistrates who hold the real power in Sparta, and the Gerizia, the Council of Elders. King Aegeus II is there, the very man you so thoroughly humiliated. The air is thick with unspoken hostility. They don't offer you a seat. They just stand there, a wall of weathered, humorless faces, and wait. This is the most important performance of your life. All your rhetorical skill, all your charm, all your intelligence must be brought to bear. But you know your usual style won't work here. Flowery speeches and clever paradoxes will only deepen their suspicion. You need to speak their language. So you do. You are direct. You are blunt. You tell them you are not a traitor to your country. Your country, you argue, is the democracy that has cast you out. The Athens that exists now, ruled by your enemies and a hysterical mob, is no longer your city. The Athens that I love, you might say, is the one that rewards its best citizens, not executes them on false charges. I am not betraying a homeland. I am seeking refuge from a regime that has betrayed the very principles of Athens. It's a subtle, clever reframing. You're not a traitor. You are a patriot in exile. You paint yourself not as an enemy, but as a victim. A victim of the same radical democracy that they, the Spartans, so despise. You create a common enemy, the Athenian mob. And then, once you've established this sliver of common ground, you make your offer. You are not here to beg for shelter. You tell them. You are here. You are. You know its strengths, its weaknesses, its secrets. You know them better than any man alive. Your brain, the finest strategic instrument of your generation, is now at their service. You will help them win the war. All you ask in return is your safety, and, eventually, your restoration. You make it clear that your ultimate goal is to return to Athens. You're just planning on using the Spartan army as your battering ram to get back in. The sheer honesty of your cynical ambition is, in a strange way, disarming to them. They listen. They don't smile. They don't nod. They just listen. And then they dismiss you. You are left in a state of limbo, a guest of the state. And this is where the next phase of your performance begins. You know you are being watched. Every move, every word is being scrutinized. So you perform the ultimate act of adaptation. You, Alcibiades, the icon of Athenian luxury, become a Spartan. You cut your long, beautiful hair, adopting the short, practical cut of a helot. You trade your fine linen chitons for the single, coarse red cloak, the tonikes. That is the uniform of a Spartan citizen. You abandon your private table and your gourmet tastes, and you start taking your meals in the public mess hall, the Sissia. You sit on a hard wooden bench next to men who have never read a book or seen a play. You force down the black broth, day after day without grimacing. You eat the barley bread and a handful of figs. You lend a hand. You exercise naked in the gymnasium with the other men, your body, once perfumed and pampered, becoming hard and lean. You adopt their manner of speech, answering questions with the briefest possible response. Your transformation is total. It is absolute, and it is utterly convincing. The Spartans, who expected you to be a soft, complaining Athenian, are astonished. They see you living their life, not just enduring it, but seemingly embracing it. This dissolute playboy is out Sparta. Spartans. They start to admire you. This, they think, is a man of incredible self-discipline, a man of substance. They are, of course, completely wrong. You are not embracing their life. You are mocking it. You are putting on their national identity like a costume. It's the greatest acting job in history. You despise their humorless society, their wretched food, their intellectual poverty. Every moment you spend in this gray, grim city is an insult to your senses. But you know that survival depends on this charade. And more than survival, revenge. So you play the part, and as you win their trust, as they begin to see you not as an Athenian, but as a useful, if eccentric, ally, you begin to deliver on your promise. You start giving them your advice, the secrets, the keys to destroying your own city. And your advice is lethally brilliant. It comes in 3 parts. A 3-pronged spear aimed directly at the heart of the Athenian Empire. First, you address the immediate crisis, Sicily. While you were making your escape, the Athenian expedition is bogged down. Nicias, left in sole command, is dithering. He's besieging Syracuse, but without energy, without daring. He's writing letters home, complaining and asking for reinforcements. You stand before the Spartan assembly and tell them exactly what to do. Send a Spartan general to Syracuse, you say. Not a large army. They don't need one. Just one man, one competent, disciplined Spartan commander. His presence alone will stiffen the resolve of the Syracusans. He will organize their defense, train their troops, and show them how to fight. You tell them that the Athenians are not invincible. They are overextended, poorly led, and racked by internal division. A single Spartan, you argue, can be the catalyst that turns the tide. And you name the man. Gylippus, a solid, if uninspired officer. He is the perfect choice. He is not a genius who might get his own ideas. He is an instrument of Spartan will. The Spartans are skeptical. It seems too simple. But the potential reward is immense. The destruction of the Athenian fleet and army in Sicily would be a blow from which Athens might never recover. They debate. They hesitate. But your logic is impeccable. Your confidence absolute. They agree. They dispatch Gylippus to Syracuse. You have just signed the death warrant for tens of thousands of your own countrymen, the men you yourself persuaded to sail to Sicily. The men who just months ago cheered your name. You have taken the largest, most glorious expedition in Athenian history and placed a Spartan knife at its throat. You must feel a cold, black satisfaction. This is what they get for crossing you. This is the price of their ingratitude. But you're just getting started. Sicily is only the beginning. Second, you give them a piece of strategic advice so simple, yet so devastating, that it will change the entire character of the war. For years, the Peloponnesian War has been a seasonal affair. The Spartans would invade Attica in the summer, burn some farms, and then go home for the harvest. The Athenians would hide behind their long walls, import food via their navy, and wait them out. It was a stalemate. You tell them to end the stalemate. Fortify a permanent base inside Attica. You advise. And you tell them exactly where. Decelia. It's a location of genius. Decelia is a town on a hill in northeast Attica, within sight of Athens itself. A permanent Spartan garrison there would be a cancer in the Athenian body politic, From Decelia, Spartan raiding parties could ravage the Athenian countryside year-round, not just in the summer. No farm would be safe. No harvest could be brought in. Athens would become entirely, 100% dependent on overseas grain imports, making its naval supply lines more critical and more vulnerable than ever before. Worse, Decelia overlooked the primary land route from Athens to its main source of food on the island of Euboea. All the overland supply trains would be cut off. And most devastatingly of all, Decelia was near the silver mines at Laurion. The mines that funded the Athenian navy, that paid for the rowers, that built the triremes, that underpinned the entire empire. With a Spartan army camped next door, the mines would be impossible to operate. Furthermore, you point out something the Spartans, with their helot-based economy, had never fully appreciated. The mines were worked by thousands of slaves. A permanent Spartan fort at Decelia would become a beacon of freedom, a magnet for every runaway slave in Attica. You are essentially telling them how to trigger a mass slave revolt and cripple the Athenian economy with a single move. It's a plan of breathtaking cruelty and strategic elegance. It's not about winning a battle. It's about slowly strangling your enemy to death in their own home. It's a permanent siege. A bone in the throat of Athens that can never be coughed up. The Spartans, who think in terms of hoplite battles, had never conceived of anything like it. It's economic warfare of the most brutal kind. They are stunned by its simplicity and its viciousness. They adopt the plan immediately. You have now doomed the army in Sicily and condemned the citizens in Attica to years of starvation and terror. You have systematically dismantled Athens' military and economic pillars. What is left? The empire itself. So you give them your third piece of advice. You tell them to take the war to the Aegean. You explain that the Athenian Empire is not a loyal family of allies. It's a protection racket. The subject cities pay tribute because they're afraid of the Athenian navy, but their loyalty is thin. Many of them, particularly the wealthy cities of Ionia on the coast of modern-day Turkey, are ethnically related to the Peloponnesians and resent Athenian domination. As soon as they hear of the disaster in Sicily, you predict their fear will turn to hope. They will be ripe for revolt. You must be ready. Send envoys. Promise them aid. Promise them freedom. But you know Spartan aid is slow and their navy is weak. So you provide the final, missing piece. Get money from the Persians. This is the ultimate taboo. For a Greek to suggest allying with the ancestral barbarian enemy, the Persians, against another Greek city-state, is the height of treason. It's a line no one had dared to cross. But you don't just cross it, you leap over it. You tell the Spartans to go to the Persian satraps in Asia Minor, Tissaphernes and Pharnabazus. Tell them that a protracted war between Athens and Sparta is in their interest. Tell them that financing the Spartan navy is the cheapest way to destroy Athens, their old nemesis. The Persians will pay for the ships and the rowers. Sparta will provide the soldiers and the leadership. Together, they can dismantle the Athenian Empire, city by city. This three-part plan send Gelapus to Sicily, fortify Decelia, and use Persian gold to incite Ionian revolts is the blueprint for Athens' total and complete destruction. And you, its most brilliant son, have just handed it to its most bitter enemy on a silver platter. You have done it. You have achieved your immediate goals. You are safe. You are respected. You are, for the first time, indispensable to the Spartan war effort. You sit in their mess hall, a red cloak on your shoulders, a cup of foul broth in your hand. Around you, the grim, silent Spartans nod to you with a newfound respect. You are their oracle of victory, and as you sit there, in the cold heart of your enemy's land, you must know with absolute certainty that thousands of miles away, because of you, your countrymen are dying. They are dying of disease in the swamps around Syracuse. They are being cut down by Syracusan cavalry, and soon, back home, their families will begin to starve. The curses of the priests have been answered. You have become the living embodiment of Athens' doom. This isn't just betrayal. It's a work of art. A masterpiece of revenge. The only question is, what does a man who has so perfectly, so completely destroyed his own past do for an encore? The only question is, what does a man who has so perfectly, so completely destroyed his own past do for an encore? You don't burn it all down just to watch the embers fade. You find a new stage. And for now, that stage is Sparta. You arrive not as a supplicant, but as a prophet, a dark oracle whose predictions have come true with terrifying accuracy. The Spartans who once viewed you with suspicion, this perfumed, long-haired creature of Athenian decadence, now look at you with a kind of grudging awe. You gave them the playbook to cripple their arch-rival, and it worked better than any of them could have imagined. You are, for a brief shining moment, the smartest man in the room. And the room in this case is the entirety of the Peloponnesian League. So you lean into it. You perform your next great role, the reformed sinner. The Athenian who has seen the error of his city's democratic, chaotic ways and embraced the pure, rigid discipline of the Spartan ideal. It's the political equivalent of a rock star going to rehab and emerging with a newfound love for quiet gardening and early nights. Nobody really buys it, but the performance is so compelling, they can't look away. First, the look. You shear off your famously long, luxurious hair, adopting the close-cropped, functional style of a Spartan hoplite. It feels wrong. Your scalp is cold. You've spent a lifetime cultivating that hair. It was a part of your brand, a symbol of your aristocratic nonchalance. Now, it's gone lying in dusty piles on a stone floor. A necessary sacrifice. You trade your fine, colorful Athenian chitons for the single, coarse, crimson-dyed cloak, the phonicus. It smells of lanolin and sweat It scratches your skin. It's a uniform designed for a collective, not a statement piece for an individual. And that's the point. You are no longer Alcibiades, the peacock. You are now a drab, functional tool of the Spartan state. Or at least, you look like one. Then comes the lifestyle. You who feasted at symposia where the wine was mixed. Just so, and the conversation was a sport of its own. Now sit on a hard wooden bench in a communal mess hall as Sicilian. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed men and boiled pork. There are no witty philosophical debates here. The conversation is clipped, laconic. Men talk of harvests, of battle formations, of the day's hunt. It's brutally, painfully boring. And then the food arrives. You are served a ladleful of the infamous Spartan black broth. It's a legendary dish, and not in a good way. It's a murky concoction of pork, salt, vinegar, and blood. It looks like swamp water and tastes like a blacksmith's armpit. The story goes that a visitor from Sybars, a city known for its luxury, once tried it and said, "Now I understand why Spartans do not fear death. You look down at the congealing black liquid in your bowl. You can see your own weary reflection in its greasy surface. You raise the spoon to your lips. You eat it. You eat it without flinching. You might even ask for more. The other Spartans watch you, their faces impassive. They see an Athenian aristocrat choking down their slop. You see it as another line learned, another piece of costume donned. You are method acting your way into their trust. You take part in the brutal Spartan physical training, the egorge, even though you're far past the age for it. You strip naked with the others in the biting cold of the Eurotas River Valley. You exercise in the dust and the sun. You learn to endure pain without complaint, to speak only when necessary, to subordinate your own flamboyant will to the discipline of the group. It is the antithesis of everything you have ever been. Your Athenian friends, were they to see you, would either laugh until they ruptured something, or conclude you'd suffered a catastrophic head injury. But you know what you're doing. Every drop of sweat, every bland mouthful of food, every clipped, monosyllabic response is an investment. You are purchasing credibility, and with that credibility, you will convince them to twist the knife in Athens' back just a little bit deeper. Because while you're playing the part of the perfect Spartan convert, your mind, that restless, brilliant Athenian mind, is working. You haven't forgotten the real goal. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and you're currently living in the world's easiest restaurant. You've already given them Sicily. That was Act 1. Now for Act 2. You stand before the Spartan assembly, the Gerousia and the Ephesers. Old men, cautious men. Men who think in terms of planting seasons and hoplite formations. They are winning, but they are winning slowly, the way Sparta has always won wars by grinding their enemies down over decades. You are here to offer them a shortcut. You fight a seasonal war. You tell them, your voice stripped of its usual Athenian flourish, replaced with a passable imitation of Spartan bluntness. You invade Attica in the summer. You burn some farms and you go home for the harvest. The Athenians just retreat behind their walls, import what they need by sea, and wait for you to leave. It's an inconvenience for them, not a threat. You let that sink in. You're telling them their entire military doctrine, the one they've used for centuries, is a waste of time. It's a breathtakingly arrogant thing to do, but you deliver it with the cold confidence of a doctor diagnosing a disease. There is a place, you continue, a Demas of Attica called Decelia. You can practically see the map in your mind's eye. It's a strategic high point about 14 miles north of Athens. It has a clear view of the entire Athenian plain, all the way to the city itself. Fortify it, you say. Occupy it, year-round. Don't just raid Attica. Live there. The Spartans are warriors, not logisticians. They're not used to this kind of thinking. They see war as a summer sport. You're proposing to turn it into a permanent siege. You explain the consequences, painting a picture of slow, agonizing strangulation. From Decelia, your cavalry can raid their fields at will, not just in summer, but every day. No harvest will be safe. No farmer will dare to work his land. The Athenians will be trapped in their city, watching the smoke from their own burning farmhouses, year after year. You pause, letting the image settle in their minds. But you're not done. And the silver, you say, your voice dropping slightly. The mines at Laurion. The source of Athens' wealth, the silver that builds their ships and pays their rowers. The overland route from the mines to the city runs right past the shadow of Decelia. Occupy that fort, and you cut them off from their money. You seize their slaves. You turn their greatest asset into a liability. This is not just military advice. This is economic warfare. It's sophisticated. It's modern. It's utterly, devastatingly Athenian in its cunning. And you were handing it to their worst enemy on a silver platter. You have become Athens' stalker. Showing up unannounced at their country house and telling all their new friends how to get them fired and cut off their credit cards. The Spartans? Slow and deliberate. Debate it. But the logic is undeniable. It's a move that attacks not just the Athenian army, but the Athenian system itself. They agree. In 413 BC, the same year their expedition is dying in Sicily, a Spartan army under King Aegisthector marches into Attica. But this time, they don't leave. They build a fortress at Decelia. The effect is immediate and catastrophic for Athens, just as you predicted. Over 20,000 slaves, most of them skilled laborers from the silver mines, desert to the Spartan side. The fields of Attica lie fallow. Food supplies that used to come overland now have to make the long, expensive sea journey around the Peloponnese. The city becomes a permanent refugee camp, its citizens crammed inside the long walls, watching their livelihood go up in smoke on the horizon. The constant stress, the financial drain, the psychological pressure of having an enemy army permanently camped on your doorstep. It begins to rot the city from the inside out. You, from the cold comfort of Sparta, have plunged a knife into your home city and established a permanent base from which to twist it, day after day. The victory in Sicily was a clean, swift blow. This is a slow, festering poison. It's a masterpiece of strategic cruelty, and you are its solar architect. King Agus himself is commanding the fort at Decelia, implementing your plan. He is becoming a hero to Sparta because of you. This will become important later. But you're still not done. There's a third act to your strategic demolition of Athens. Crippling their army and their economy isn't enough. You need to go after the source of their power, the one thing that has kept them unbeatable for 50 years, their navy, the wooden walls of Athens. Sparta is the land power. They have no real naval tradition. Their idea of a naval battle is to get their ships close enough to the enemy so they can board them and have a land battle at sea. It's clumsy. It's ineffective against the skilled Athenian fleet. To challenge Athens on the waves, Sparta needs ships. Lots of them. And ships are expensive. Sparta, for all its military might, is cash poor. So you propose the unthinkable. The ultimate taboo of the Greek world. Go to the Persians, you say. You can imagine the silence in the room. The Persians. The great king. The barbarian empire that their grandfather's generation had bled to defeat at Marathon, at Salamis, at Plataea. The existential enemy of all Hellenes. The very reason the Athenian Empire, which they now seek to destroy, was formed in the first place. To suggest an alliance with Persia is not just treasonous to Athens. To a Spartan, it feels like a betrayal of Greek identity itself. But you are past such sentimentalities. Identity is a cloak, and you have learned to change yours with the seasons. You frame it in terms of cold, hard pragmatism. Athens is your enemy. But Persia is also Athens' enemy. They have not forgotten the empire Athens carved out of their former territories in Ionia. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's an old concept, but applying it here is revolutionary. They have what you lack. Gold. Endless amounts of it. Let the great king pay for your fleet. Let Persian gold defeat Athenian silver. You offer to go yourself. You, Alcibiades, son of Cleinias, a man whose family history is intertwined with the fight against Persia, will be the broker for this monstrous alliance. You will sail to Ionia and meet with the Persian satrap Tissaphernes. You will convince him that it is in Persia's best interest to fund Sparta's war effort. Your logic is simple and cynical. A long, drawn-out war between Athens and Sparta will weaken both, allowing Persia to pick up the pieces and reclaim its lost territories. You are essentially inviting a foreign superpower to meddle in Greek affairs for its own benefit, using Sparta as its proxy. It's a disgusting, treacherous, but undeniably brilliant plan. It globalizes the conflict. The Peloponnesian War is no longer a civil war among Greeks. It's now a proxy war funded by the Persian Empire. The Spartans, desperate for a final advantage, agree. They swallow their pride, their history, their Hellenic honor, because you have shown them how. You have taught them that victory is more important than principle. It's a very Athenian lesson, ironically enough. So now the pieces are all in place. The Athenian army is shattered in Sicily. The Athenian homeland is under permanent siege from Decelia, and a new Spartan fleet, paid for with Persian gold, is being built to challenge Athens on her own turf, the sea. All of this, every last bit of it, is your handiwork. You have given Sparta the keys to victory. You should be a hero. Your statue should be erected next to that of Lycurgus. So why, then, do you start sleeping with a dagger under your pillow? Because success, especially your kind of flamboyant, undeniable success, breeds a very specific kind of poison: jealousy. The Spartans may be disciplined, but they are still human. And they are starting to get tired of the brilliant Athenian refugee telling them how to win their own war. The Spartan generals and kings, men who have dedicated their entire lives to the singular purpose of military command, are being overshadowed by you. You are not just helping them. You are making them look like amateurs. Your chief rival, the man with the most to lose from your success, is King Agis II. The very same King Agis who is commanding the fort at Decelia, executing your grand strategy, while he's shivering through the winter in a muddy fort in Attica, living out the consequences of your genius. You are back in Sparta, the toast of the town. You're the celebrity consultant who swoops in, solves the problem, and collects all the credit. Agis is doing the hard work, but you're the one getting the glory. He hates you for it. He hates your cleverness, your confidence, your inescapable Athenianness, no matter how short you cut your hair. He sees you correctly, as a threat to his own authority and reputation, and then you give him a reason to hate you that has nothing to do with politics or war. You give him a reason that is deeply, exquisitely personal. You sleep with his wife. Her name is Timea. She is the Queen of Sparta. And while her husband, King Agis, is away on campaign, the campaign you designed, you begin an affair with her. Let's just pause to appreciate the sheer, glorious, self-destructive audacity of this act. You are a political refugee, living on the charity and goodwill of your hosts. Your entire survival depends on maintaining the trust of the Spartan leadership. The most powerful man in that leadership, aside from his co-king, is Agis. And you... in a stunning display of what can only be described as terminal hubris, decide to seduce his wife in his own city, while he's away fighting your war for you? Why? Was it boredom? The Spartan lifestyle, after the initial challenge, was probably getting on your nerves. Was it ego? The need to prove that even here, in this city of martial ascetics, you could conquer the most forbidden territory? Was it a strange form of revenge against Argus himself, a man you knew was your rival, or was it simply because you could? Because Timea was there, and beautiful, and perhaps, like so many others, drawn to the dangerous flame of your personality. Plutarch, ever the fan of juicy gossip, claims that Timea was utterly infatuated with you, that in the privacy of her chambers with her handmaidens, she would whisper the name of her newborn son, Alcibiades. She was so proud of sleeping with you that she couldn't help but brag. You, for your part, were no better. You allegedly told people that you hadn't done it for mere lust or insult, but because you wanted your descendants to be kings of Sparta. You wanted to hijack a royal bloodline, just as a sort of ambitious side project. Whether that's true or just the kind of larger-than-life rumor that always clung to you, the affair happened. And in a place like Sparta, a small, insular, paranoid society, where everyone knows everyone else's business, a secret like that has the shelf life of a snowflake in a forge. The whispers start. The sideways glances in the mess hall. The sudden silences when you approach. You're a smart man. You feel the temperature drop. And then, King Agus comes home from Decelia. Maybe a soldier passes on a rumor. Maybe one of Timea's handmaidens talks. Maybe he just looks at his new son, Leotychidas, and does the math. However it happens, he finds out. The king of Sparta, a man whose entire life is an exercise in emotional suppression, now has a very simple, very pure, and very personal objective. He wants you dead. Your political rival now has a blood feud-level justification to eliminate you. All your strategic brilliance, all your contributions to the war effort, they are all instantly incinerated in the heat of a husband's rage, a rage that happens to belong to a king. Agus's hatred becomes the organizing principle for all the other anti-Alcibiades sentiment in Sparta. The other generals who were jealous of you, the ephors who were suspicious of you, the old conservatives who always disliked your foreign glamour, they now have a leader. And they have a cause. Not just a political disagreement, but a righteous personal insult to one of their kings. Your enemies in Sparta send a quiet dispatch to their generals in Asia Minor, where you are currently conducting your diplomatic mission with the Persians. The orders are simple and unambiguous. Kill Alcibiades. This isn't a trial in the Athenian assembly. There are no speeches, no juries, no appeals. This is a Spartan death sentence. It's a quiet word to a subordinate, a knife in a dark alley, a convenient accident on a stormy sea. It's brutally efficient, but you are, if nothing else, a survivor. You have informants everywhere. Your network of friends, allies, and people who owe you favors is your one true constant. You get a tip. The order has been given. The men you are working with have been instructed to murder you. The feeling must have been horribly familiar. Once again, the city you have thrown your lot in with, the people you have served with all your prodigious talent, has decided it wants you gone. First Athens, with its summons and its death sentence in absentia. Now Sparta, with its secret assassination order. You have an almost supernatural talent for making yourself, and then, immediately afterward, and intolerable, you wear out your welcome at the speed of light. There's no grand farewell, no dramatic confrontation. You just disappear. One night you are the envoy of Sparta, negotiating with the Persian satrap Tissaphernes. The next morning, you are gone. You slip away from the Spartan camp, a fugitive once more. You have betrayed Athens for Sparta. Now, Sparta wants to kill you. You are a man without a city, a man without a flag. You are running for your life from the two most powerful states in the Hellenic world, both of whom have excellent reasons to want your head on a spike. Most men would find a quiet hole on a distant island and live out their days in paranoid obscurity. But you are not most men. Where do you run when you're fleeing from the Spartans in Persian-controlled territory? You don't run away from the danger. You run directly into its center. You go straight to the man you've been negotiating with, the Persian satrap Tissaphernes. You appear at his court, not as a Spartan envoy, but as a man with a new and interesting proposition. You have burned your bridges with Sparta. You are a free agent. And you have information to sell. You have now entered the third and perhaps most complex phase of your exile. You are no longer an Athenian general. You are no longer a Spartan advisor. You are now a player in the court of the Persian Empire. You become Tissaphernes' personal consultant on Greek affairs. It's a new role, a new costume. You trade the coarse Spartan cloak for silken Persian robes. You learn the elaborate rituals of a foreign court, the subtle language of power and intrigue. And what is the first piece of advice you give to your new patron? You tell him to stop helping the Spartans so much. Don't be in such a hurry to finish this war. You advise the Persian. You explain your cynical masterpiece of a foreign policy. A long war is in Persia's best interest. Let the Greeks grind each other down. If one side, Sparta or Athens, seems to be winning, reduce your aid to them and give a little to the other. Keep the balance. Bleed them both dry. When they are both exhausted, the king can retake Ionia with little resistance. Tissaphernes, a man who appreciates a good, treacherous strategy, is delighted. This is exactly the kind of clever, heartless counsel he wants to hear. So he takes your advice. He begins to hedge his bets. The flow of Persian gold to the Spartan fleet becomes intermittent, unreliable. The Spartan war effort, which you yourself had made dependent on Persian subsidy, begins to sputter. You are now actively undermining the very strategy you created. From your perfumed perch in a Persian palace, you are now playing Sparta and Athens against each other like pieces on a game board, with Persia as the ultimate winner. You have gone from being Athens' destroyer to Sparta's savior, and now to the saboteur of them both. You are loyal to no one and nothing except your own survival and your own ceaseless ambition. You sit with Tissaphernes, drinking fine wine, advising him on how to best ruin all of your former friends and enemies, a ghost haunting the Peloponnesian War, pulling its strings from the shadows, The rejection from Athens was bitter. The rejection from Sparta was deadly. But for you, it's just another turn of the plot, another chance to reinvent yourself and find a new angle to play. You are trapped in a labyrinth of your own making, but you seem to be the only one who enjoys the maze. You sit with Tissaphernes, drinking fine wine, advising him on how to best ruin all of your former friends and enemies, a ghost haunting the Peloponnesian War, pulling its strings from the shadows. The rejection from Athens was bitter. The rejection from Sparta was deadly. But for you, it's just another turn of the plot. Another chance to reinvent yourself and find a new angle to play. You are trapped in a labyrinth of your own making, but you seem to be the only one who enjoys the maze. The wine is from Chios, heavy and sweet, and it coats your tongue like a lie. Tissaphernes smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. His eyes are like a merchant's, constantly calculating, weighing your worth, your utility, your eventual cost of disposal. The air in his pavilion at Magnesia is thick with the scent of burning cedar and suspicion. Silks rustle, gold glints in the lamplight, and every shadow seems to hold an observer with a dagger. This isn't the blunt, sweaty terror of a Spartan barracks or the noisy, argumentative chaos of the Athenian assembly. This is the quiet, suffocating menace of absolute power. It's a place where a man can be erased with a quiet word, his existence dissolving as quickly as a drop of wine on a hot stone. You should be terrified. Instead, you feel a strange sense of belonging. Your advice to the Persian satrap is a masterpiece of self-serving geopolitics. You lean forward, the picture of a sincere adviser, your voice a low, confidential murmur. My lord Tissaphernes, you begin your Greek, carefully chosen, elegant and persuasive. The great king's interest is not in a swift victory for Sparta. You let that hang in the air. Tissaphernes sips his wine, his gaze unwavering. He knows this, of course, but he wants to hear you say it. He wants to see how the mind of a renegade Greek works. A triumphant Sparta, you continue, is just a new Greece, arrogant and powerful on your doorstep. They will forget your generosity the moment the last Athenian ship sinks. They are a land power, greedy for more. They will look at your coastal cities in Ionia, filled with their fellow Greeks, and see not a gift but a birthright. This is the hook. You are playing on Persian fears, the deep-seated anxiety of an empire that sees the Greeks as fractious, annoying gnats who, if ever united, could become a serious problem. And a triumphant Athens, he asks, his voice smooth as the silk cushions you recline on. Worse, you say with a dismissive wave, a sea power. Their ambition has no shore. They will control the trade, the islands, the Hellespont. Their democracy is a disease, Tissaphernes. It spreads. It encourages Ionian cities to dream of freedom, which is simply another word for rebellion. You could see the gears turning behind his eyes. You're not telling him anything a savvy imperial administrator doesn't already know. You're just packaging it for him. You're validating his own instincts, making him feel like a genius for thinking the very thoughts you're putting in his head. This is your art. Not warfare, not oratory, but the subtle alchemy of influence.
So what do you propose, son of Cleinias? The use of your patronymic is a subtle reminder. He knows exactly who you are, what you've lost.
He's reminding you that you are a supplicant here, a tool, a balance. You say, a faint smile playing on your lips.
Let the two great powers of Greece grind each other down. Let it be a war of attrition.
You hold the purse strings.
The Peloponnesian fleet cannot row without Persian gold.
So, you pay them, but you do not pay them promptly.
You do not pay them fully.
You let their crews grow hungry, mutinous.
When the Spartans are on the verge of a great victory, you hold back the payments. When the Athenians rally, you release a trickle of funds to the Spartans. You let them exhaust each other, bleed each other white on the shores of the Aegean, let them become two tired old boxers, flailing at each other in the final round, too weak to land a knockout blow. Then, when they are both on their knees, the great king can step in and dictate the terms of peace to a shattered Greece. You don't just win the war, you win the entire century. You are advising Tissaphernes to run the Peloponnesian War like a failing startup, constantly promising the next round of funding while secretly hoping it goes bankrupt. It is cynical. It is treacherous. It is utterly brilliant. And it serves your own purposes perfectly. A long, indecisive war is a war that might eventually need a man of your unique talents to end it. A decisive Spartan victory leaves you as a permanent, hunted exile. A decisive Athenian victory leaves you condemned to death in absentia. Stalemate is your only path back to relevance. Tissaphernes nods slowly, a genuine flicker of admiration in his cold eyes. He has found his perfect instrument. A Greek who thinks like a Persian. He pours you more wine. You drink. For now, you are safe. For now, you are useful. But you know, with the chilling certainty of a man who has betrayed everyone he's ever known, that useful has an expiration date. Agis, the Spartan king, wants your head. The Athenian assembly wants your head. And Tissaphernes. Well, Tissaphernes will want your head the moment you become more trouble than you're worth. You are living on borrowed time, in a gilded cage, and the only thing keeping you alive is the quality of your advice. So you double down. You don't just offer strategic counsel. You become the satrap's cultural guide to the baffling world of the Hellenes. You teach him about Greek pride, that absurd, brittle honor that makes them so predictable. You explain that Spartans can be bought, but they despise the man who buys them. You explain that Athenians will follow any sophist who can flatter their intelligence, even as he picks their pockets. You adopt Persian dress, not the full regalia, but enough to show you are adaptable, that you are not clinging to the identity of the city that cast you out. You learn their customs, their etiquette. You are a chameleon, a mirror,
reflecting back whatever your host wants to see. The Athenians who hear this are disgusted. The Spartans are enraged. Alcibiades has gone native. He's become a barbarian. You let them think it.
It's all part of the game. While you play the decadent, assimilated traitor, you are secretly opening a new line of communication.
Your real target is not in Magnesia, or Susa, or Sparta. It's on the island of Samos.
Samos is the main forward base of the Athenian fleet. It's where the streams are anchored, where thousands of sailors and marines are stationed, fighting a war they are slowly but surely losing.
They are cut off from home, demoralized, and paranoid. And crucially, the fleet is commanded by a number of wealthy, influential men triarchs and generals who have always been suspicious of the radical democracy in Athens. They blame the mob, the demagogues, the assembly of shoemakers and farmers for the disastrous Sicilian expedition, for your exile, for the whole mess. They are ripe for a change. You begin to send secret feelers, messages passed through trusted intermediaries. The proposition is simple, audacious, and utterly you. The democracy is a sinking ship. Your message says, in essence, it exiled me. The one man who could have won you this war. It listens to fools and liars. But I can save you. I have the ear of Tissaphernes. I control the flow of Persian gold. The great king will not support a democracy he despises. But if you were to change your form of government, if you were to establish a more stable regime, an oligarchy that would recall me, then I could bring the satrap and the entire Persian treasury over to the Athenian side. I will not return to a city run by the mob that condemned me, but I will return to a city run by men of sense. Make the change, and I will deliver you victory. It is the ultimate political blackmail. You are holding the fate of your city hostage in exchange for your own return. You are telling the generals to stage a coup, to dismantle the very system they are sworn to defend, and in return, you'll make their problems go away. The sheer, breathtaking arrogance of it is almost admirable. You're not just offering to switch sides again, you're offering to bring your new sugar daddy with you, flipping the entire strategic balance of the war on its head. At Samos, the generals huddle in their tents. The smell of sea salt and anxiety thicken the air. Men like Phrynichus and Pisander, they listen to your proposal. It's treason. It's a betrayal of everything Athens stands for. It's also the only glimmer of hope they've seen in years. They are practical men. They know the war is being lost. The treasury is empty. The Spartans, funded by Persia, are building new ships every day. Your offer sounds insane, but it's the only tune being played. Phrynichus, a shrewd and cynical commander, sees the flaw immediately. He doesn't trust you. Who would? He suspects this is just another one of your elaborate games. He argues against it. Alcibiades doesn't care about an oligarchy or a democracy. He warns the others. He only cares about Alcibiades. He will use us to get back into the city, and then he will abandon us to court the people's favor again, just as he always has. Phrynicus has your number. He's one of the few people who truly understands you, and for that you will eventually pay the price. But the others, led by the ambitious Pisander, are more desperate. They see a shortcut to victory and power. They agree to your terms. They send a delegation, led by Pisander himself, to travel back to Athens and lay the groundwork for the coup. And they send envoys to you to meet with Tissaphernes and formalize this new, glorious alliance. This is where the real theater begins. You've got the Athenians hooked. Now you have to manage Tissaphernes. You can't just tell him you're planning to betray him and take his money to your old friends. You have to make it seem like his idea. So you go to him with a new proposition. My lord, you say? Perhaps over another game of Pesoi. Moving the pieces with calculated nonchalance. The Athenians are growing desperate. Their commanders at Samos are willing to do anything to survive. They are even willing to overthrow their own democracy if it means securing an alliance with you. Tissaphernes is intrigued. He despises the Athenian democracy. The idea of it collapsing from within is appealing. They are sending envoys. You continue. They want to negotiate. They believe that I can persuade you to switch your allegiance from Sparta to Athens. You pause, letting him absorb the audacity of it. This gives us an opportunity. We can string them along. We can make them believe a deal is possible while extracting concessions and learning their weaknesses. And we can use their desperation to make Sparta nervous, to make them more compliant. You are now playing a double game of spectacular complexity. You've promised the Athenians you'll bring them Persian gold. You're telling the Persians that you're just pretending to negotiate with the Athenians to manipulate both them and the Spartans. You are the single point of contact, the one man who speaks to everyone, and you are lying to all of them. It's like being the shady M&A consultant advising on a hostile takeover, except you're secretly working for both companies, a third-party investor, and planning to siphon off most of the cash for yourself. The Athenian envoys arrive from Samos. You arrange a meeting with Tissaphernes. You are the translator, the intermediary, the puppet master. And now, you have to make sure the deal fails. Why? Because you've come to realize something crucial. Tissaphernes is never going to actually side with Athens. He's enjoying your game of attrition far too much. He has no incentive to give Athens a decisive victory. Your promise to the Athenian oligarchs was a fantasy. A lie you told to get your foot back in the door. If the negotiations succeed, your lie will be exposed. You'll be revealed as a fraud to the Athenians. If you fail to even bring the Persians to the table, you'll also be a fraud. So you have to orchestrate a negotiation that is so difficult, so humiliating for the Athenians, that they are the ones who walk away. You have to make it look like you tried your best, but the Persians were just too demanding. The first meeting is a masterclass in bad faith negotiation. The Athenian envoys make their pitch. They're setting up an oligarchy. They'll be more reliable partners. They need Persian support to defeat Sparta.
You translate their proposal to Tissaphernes, and then you turn back to your countrymen. Tissaphernes is interested. You announce with the grave expression of a man bearing difficult news. However, he requires a significant gesture of goodwill. He demands that the great king be given sovereignty over all of Ionia. The envoys are stunned. Ionia was the cradle of Greek philosophy and culture. To hand it over to the Persians was unthinkable, a betrayal of their kinsmen. It had been the original cause of the wars with Persia 50 years earlier. But they are desperate. After some agonized debate, they agree. They are willing to pay the price. You hadn't counted on this level of desperation. You thought that first demand would be enough to scuttle the deal. You've underestimated how far they're willing to go. You have to up the ante. You arrange a second meeting. The atmosphere is even more tense. The Athenians confirm they accept the terms. You confer with Tissaphernes again, a show of whispering in his ear. You turn back to the envoys. My lord Tissaphernes is pleased with your flexibility, you say, your tone apologetic. However, he has a further condition. The great king must also be granted sovereignty over all the islands of the Aegean adjacent to his coast. This is outrageous. It means giving up Lesbos, Chios, Samos itself. It means surrendering the very foundations of the Athenian naval empire. It's not a deal. It's a demand for unconditional surrender. The envoys are aghast. They argue. They protest. But incredibly, they are so deep into this gambit, so committed to the idea that you are their only salvation, that they don't walk away. They say they must consider it. You are sweating now, not from the Ionian heat, but from the sheer stress of this high-wire act. You've built this precarious tower of lies, and it's threatening to collapse on you. You need to make one final demand, one so impossible, so insulting, that no Greek, no matter how desperate, could ever accept it. The third meeting, the air is poison. The envoys look haggard, sleepless. You can smell their fear. You feel a flicker of something pity, contempt, but you push it down. This is about survival. You let them wait. You and Tissaphernes speak for a long time in Persian. Your gestures calm and expansive, as if discussing the weather. Finally, you face your countrymen. Your face is a mask of regret. I have done all I can, you say, your voice heavy with false sincerity. But Tissaphernes has one final non-negotiable condition. You pause for dramatic effect. The great king must be permitted to build ships in any number he pleases and to sail them wherever he wishes in Hellenic waters. That's it. That's the poison pill. It's not a condition. It's the end of Greek freedom in the Aegean. It would allow the Persian navy to sail right into the harbor at Piraeus if they wished. It is a demand so total and absolute that it renders the entire concept of an Athenian empire meaningless. This time it works. The envoys explode in anger. They accuse Tissaphernes of treachery. They accuse you of setting them up. Pysander, your chief advocate, is furious. You have made him look like a fool. The deal is off. They storm out, their hopes dashed, their mission a complete failure. You turn to Tissaphernes. You have done exactly what you secretly promised him. You have made the Athenians look foolish and desperate, and you have done it without costing him a single derrick. He is pleased. You are still useful, but you have also succeeded in your other objective. You have proven to the Athenian oligarchs that negotiating with the Persians is impossible. For anyone but you. You've created the problem and positioned yourself as the only solution. You send a message back to them. Tissaphernes is difficult, but I can still manage him. The failure of these talks proves you need me more than ever. Push forward with the coup. Once you are in power and recall me, I will smooth things over. It's a spectacular piece of gaslighting. It's a spectacular piece of gaslighting. You sabotaged the negotiation to save your own skin, and then you framed it as evidence of your own indispensability. While you've been playing these elaborate games in Asia Minor, however, your co-conspirator Pysander has been busy in Athens. He and his allies have been brutally effective. They use intimidation and assassination. They target democratic leaders. They create an atmosphere of terror. And they succeed. They force the assembly to vote itself out of existence, establishing a council of 400 to rule the city. The oligarchy you demanded as your price of return is now a reality. The news reaches you and the fleet at Samos at roughly the same time. And it is a catastrophe. You see, you never wanted a coup in the city of Athens itself. That was never the plan. The plan was for the army at Samos to establish an oligarchy for itself. Recall you, and then, with you and your promised Persian fleet at its head, win the war and return to Athens as conquering heroes. You wanted a military junta, not a political revolution back home. The problem is the fleet itself. The thousands of men who row the triremes, the common soldiers, the thetes, they are the bedrock of Athenian democracy. They are the ones who vote in the assembly, who are paid for jury service, who hold the demagogues on their shoulders. They hate the rich, they hate the oligarchs, and now they've just heard that a cabal of aristocrats has seized their city, abolished their rights, and may be planning to sell out the war to Sparta. And who do they blame for all this? The man whose name was used to justify it all. You! The camp at Samos erupts. It's not just a protest. It's a full-blown mutiny. The soldiers depose their oligarch-sympathizing generals. They elect new ones, men loyal to the democracy, men like Thrasybulus and Thrasyllus. The entire Athenian war effort is on the verge of splintering into a civil war. The soldiers are enraged. They talk of sailing immediately to Piraeus to overthrow the 400. It is the absolute worst-case scenario. An Athenian civil war now would hand the entire Aegean to the Spartans on a silver platter.
The whole city, the whole empire is about to commit suicide. The new democratic leaders of the fleet, Thrasybulus in particular, are in a impossible position. They have a mutinous army, a hostile government back home, and a Spartan fleet waiting just over the horizon, ready to pounce. They need to calm the men, restore discipline, and find a way to reunite the city. They need a figurehead. Someone with the authority, the fame, and the sheer audacity to hold this whole crumbling mess together. They need someone the men will listen to. Someone who represents a hope of victory, no matter how tainted. In this moment of supreme crisis, of democratic fervor and rage against the oligarchs, the soldiers at Samos do the most illogical, irrational, and desperate thing imaginable. They start chanting a name. The name of the man who started this all. The ultimate aristocrat. The traitor who hobnobbed with Spartans and Persians. The man who just tried to sell them out for an oligarchy. They start chanting your name. Alcibiades. Thrasybulus, a true patriot and a pragmatist, realizes he has no choice. The only man who can control this chaos is the man who embodies it. The only one who can save the democracy is the man who just tried to destroy it. He knows you're a snake. He knows you're a user. But you are their snake, and your poison might be the only available antidote. He puts his own reputation on the line and persuades the enraged assembly of soldiers to formally vote to recall you from exile, grant you immunity, and appoint you general. A messenger is dispatched from Samos to Magnesia, a journey of a few days. He finds you in the perfumed, gilded prison of Tissaphernes' court. He brings you the news. The Athenian democracy, the very mob you despise, the institution you tried to dismantle, has just voted you its savior. They are begging you to come back, to lead them. The rejection from Athens was bitter. The rejection from Sparta was deadly. The dalliance with Persia was a tightrope walk over a canyon. And now this. An invitation. A resurrection. The plot has taken another turn, more absurd than any you could have devised yourself. You stand there, in your fine Persian robes, the scent of exotic spices in your nostrils, holding an offer to become the general of a radical democratic army that is in open rebellion against its own oligarchic government. It's a mess. It's a paradox. It's a suicide mission. And you can't help but smile. The maze just got interesting again. The smile is a private thing, a flicker of true amusement in a life that has become a tedious performance of sincerity. You've been playing the part of the useful exile for Tissaphernes, the Persian satrap. You've been his pet Greek, his consultant on Aegean affairs, whispering advice that mostly serves to keep the Athenians and Spartans bleeding each other dry, ensuring neither grows strong enough to threaten Persian interests. It's a comfortable purgatory. Good wine, soft silks, the cloying respect of functionaries who fear your intellect. But it is fundamentally boring. You are a shark, trapped in a decorative pond. This is the open sea. The men who brought it are from the Athenian fleet at Samos. They are not the polished aristocrats you grew up with. They are rowers, marines, junior officers, men with calloused hands and sun-scorched necks, their faces etched with the anxiety of a war they are now fighting on two fronts, against the Spartans at sea and against the coup back home in Athens. They look at you not as a traitor, but as a talisman. They remember Sicily. Not the disaster, but the ambition. They remember the stories of your brilliance, your daring, your almost supernatural ability to make things happen. They have conveniently forgotten, or chosen to forgive, the part where you advised the Spartans on how to best dismantle their empire. Desperation is a powerful editor of memory. You accept, of course. The alternative is to slowly petrify in a Persian garden, becoming another forgotten curiosity. Your arrival at Samos is a calculated spectacle. You don't scurry in like a pardoned criminal. You sail in, projecting an aura of confidence you don't entirely feel. The assembled fleet is a raw nerve of democratic fervor. They have deposed their oligarch-sympathizing generals and are essentially a rogue state, an armed democracy floating on the Aegean. They greet you with a roar that is equal parts hope and hysteria. They make you General Strategos, Autocrator, and Supreme Commander with absolute authority, the very power Athens itself was terrified to grant you. The irony is so thick you could use it for ballast. Your first address to them is a masterpiece of manipulation. You don't apologize. You don't grovel. You project power. You massively exaggerate your influence with Tissaphernes, painting a picture of endless Persian gold and a fleet of Phoenician warships just waiting for your signal to join the Athenian cause. It's a complete fabrication. Your relationship with the satrap is already fraying. He's beginning to realize that your advice serves Alcibiades first, Persia second, and everyone else a distant third. He's even had you briefly imprisoned as a warning. But these sailors don't know that. They just see their charismatic savior, promising them the one thing they lack, a clear path to victory. You are playing a game of three-dimensional chess on a board slick with blood. You need to use the threat of your imaginary Persian alliance to intimidate the oligarchs in Athens into restoring the democracy and recalling you. You need to use the Athenian fleet to fight the Spartans and prove your military value. And you need to keep Tissaphernes just friendly enough that he doesn't actively try to have you killed. It's an impossible balancing act. It's the kind of challenge you were born for. The oligarchs in Athens, the 400, send envoys. They are terrified. They know your name alone is a rallying cry for the common man they've just disenfranchised. You meet them with performative contempt. You, dressed in the opulent splendor of a Persian courtier, lecture them on the virtues of democracy. You, the man who schemed with Sparta, demand their unwavering loyalty to Athens. You tell them to dissolve their illegal government and restore the old constitution, or you will sail on the Piraeus and settle the matter yourself. The sailors love it. They want to sail on Athens right now. They want to crush the coup and string up the oligarchs. It's a tempting thought, a swift, brutal resolution. But you know better.
You know that sailing on Athens means civil war.
The Athenian fleet fighting the Athenian army, right in their own harbor, while the Spartan navy sits offshore, waiting to pick up the pieces. It would be the end of everything. And so, in your first act as their supreme commander, you do the one thing no one expects. You tell them no. You quell the mutiny. You save Athens from itself and from you. You, Alcibiades, the agent of chaos, become the voice of reason. You convince thousands of angry armed men to stand down, to focus on the real enemy, Sparta. It might be the single most patriotic thing you have ever done. And you did it not out of love for Athens, but because a ruined Athens is a useless prize. The game has to continue. The maize must be preserved. Now you have an army. You have a fleet. You have a cause, however temporary. All you need is an enemy to crush. The Spartan fleet under their new navarch, Mindarus, is operating in the Hellespont, the vital strait that controls Athens' grain supply from the Black Sea. It's the city's jugular vein. Mindarus is trying to cut it. This is where the performance ends and the work begins. The stench of the fleet is a constant companion. It's a city of 20,000 men packed onto 100 wooden ships. The air is thick with the smell of sweat, bilge water, stale rations, and fear. The camaraderie of the sailors is a brittle thing, a shared gallows humor that could curdle into mutiny at the first sign of weakness. They watch you, this perfumed aristocrat, and wonder if you're just another politician who will lead them to their deaths. You have to prove them wrong. Your first major engagement is at Abydos. It's a chaotic, swirling melee of ships. The sound is deafening. The crack of oars snapping, the splintering crash of a ram striking home, the screams of men crushed between hulls or pitched into the churning water. You art in the command tent of a modern general, looking at a map. You're on the deck of your trireme, the salt spray in your face, the smoke of battle stinging your eyes. You see a squadron of your own ships getting overwhelmed by the Spartans. With a theatrical flair that is pure Alcibiades, you unfurl your personal banner, a golden Cupid wielding a thunderbolt, and lead a fresh squadron of 18 ships directly into the fray. The sight of your flagship, your famous banner, and your reinforcements turns the tide. The Spartans, thinking they were winning, break and flee. It's a victory. A bloody, desperate, and crucial victory. You've drawn first blood. The sailors who cheered your name at Samos now look at you with something approaching awe. You didn't just talk. You fought. You bled with them. But the war isn't over. Mindarus retreats to Cyzicus to repair and refit. Linking up with a Persian army, led by the local satrap, Pharnabazus. They have you outnumbered. Your fleet is battered, your men are exhausted, and your treasury is empty. The logical move would be to wait, to consolidate, to beg for more money from Tissaphernes. Logic is for lesser men. You devise a plan that is audacious to the point of insanity. You gather your fleet at Sestos, and under the cover of a dark, rainy night, you slip through the Hellespont, completely undetected by the Spartan lookouts. As dawn breaks, the weather clears, and you find the entire Spartan fleet of 80 ships scattered around Cyzicus, their crews foraging for supplies on the shore. They are completely exposed. You divide your force. You send a small detachment under your old colleague Thrasybulus to block the escape route and deal with Pharnabazus's land army. You take the main body of the fleet and charge directly at the disorganized Spartans. What follows isn't a battle, it's a slaughter. The Spartans, caught completely by surprise, barely have time to man their ships. You ram and sink them where they lie. Mandarus, to his credit, tries to rally his men. He beaches his remaining ships and forms a defensive line on the shore, hoping to hold out until Pharnabazus's Persian infantry can save them. This is where you make the decision that cements your legend. You don't just win a naval battle. You land your own men, your marines and your rowers, armed with whatever they can find, and you lead a charge up the beach. It's a mad scramble over sand and rock into a hail of spears and arrows. You are in the thick of it, a general fighting like a common soldier. You find Mendarus, the Spartan Navarch, the professional warrior, dies there on the beach, cut down in the chaos. The Spartan defense collapses. The Persians under Pharnabazus, seeing the Spartans routed and their commander killed, lose their nerve and retreat. You have not just defeated the Spartan navy, you have annihilated it. You capture every single one of their ships. The victory is so total, so absolute, that it feels unreal. The Spartans later send a message back to the ephors in Sparta, a message your patrols intercept. It's a perfect distillation of their laconic despair. Ships gone, Mindarus dead, men starving. Don't know what to do. You have single-handedly reopened the grain route, destroyed Sparta's naval power in the north, and given Athens a chance not just to survive, but to win. You spend the next year consolidating your gains, capturing city after city, including the crucial prize of Byzantium. You are no longer just a general. You are the master of the Hellespont, the man who holds the keys to Athens' survival. The news of your victories trickles back to Athens. The oligarchic 400 have already fallen, replaced by a more moderate regime, and now full-blown democracy is restored. The charges against you are formally dropped. The path is clear. After 7 years of exile as a fugitive, a Spartan advisor, a Persian courtier, and a rogue general, you can finally go home. Your return is not a quiet affair. You don't slip back into the city. You orchestrate it like the final act of a grand play. You sail from Samos with a fleet of 200 captured warships, adorned with the spoils of your victories. You don't make straight for Athens. You linger, letting the anticipation build, making a show of your power. When you finally enter the Piraeus, the port of Athens, the entire city turns out to see you. The harbor is choked with people. They crowd the quays, the warehouse, roofs, the defensive walls. It is a sea of faces, and you can't read their expressions. Is it adoration? Curiosity? Fear? They are silent as your flagship glides to its mooring. For a long moment, you hesitate to disembark. You have enemies here. Men whose relatives you've ruined, whose political careers you've destroyed. Is this a celebration or an ambush? You scan the crowd, looking for a familiar, friendly face. You see your cousin, Euryptolemus, and other family members. Reassured, you finally step onto Athenian soil. The silence breaks. A roar erupts from the crowd. They surge forward, weeping, cheering, trying to touch you, to crown you with garlands. They call you a savior. They apologize. They blame your enemies, lesser men, for driving you away. It's everything you ever wanted. The ultimate vindication. An entire city begging for your forgiveness. You walk in a procession from the port to the city proper. It's a triumph in all but name. People point you out to their children. They recount the story Cyzicus Abios. Abios, they see not the traitor who fled in the night, but the hero who returned in glory. You are led to the assembly, the heart of the democracy that condemned you. You stand before them, and you give a speech. It's not a speech of triumph. It's a carefully crafted performance of wounded nobility. You gently chastise them for their lack of faith, you lament your misfortunes, and you pivot quickly to the future, to the final victory over Sparta that you and only you can deliver. They are eating out of your hand. They officially restore all your property. They vote to return the money they confiscated. And then they do the unthinkable. They elect you strategos autocrator again. Supreme commander of all land and sea forces. The position they gave you in desperation at Samos, they now give you in adoration at Athens. You have more power than any Athenian since Pericles. To complete the rehabilitation, you stage one final piece of political theater. The sacred mysteries of Eleusis, the most holy religious festival in Athens, had been suspended. The overland procession from Athens to Eleusis had become too dangerous, with the Spartan garrison at Decelia controlling the countryside. For years, the rites had to be conducted by sea, a pale imitation of the grand tradition. You announce that this year the procession will go by land. You march out of Athens at the head of your army, flanking the priests and the initiates. You escort them along the sacred way, right under the noses of the Spartan fort. King Agus, your old acquaintance, your wife's former lover, watches from the walls of Decelia. He doesn't dare attack. Your prestige is too high. Your soldiers too confident. You march the procession to Eleusis and back again without a single casualty. You have not only restored Athens' military might, you have restored its sacred honor. You have washed away the stain of your own alleged sacrilege by becoming the ultimate defender of the faith. It's a perfect, symmetrical, beautiful checkmate. You are at the absolute pinnacle. You are the Sun King of Athens, a democratic monarch, a warrior priest. You have it all, and it takes less than a year for it all to burn down.
The problem with being the savior is that people expect you to save them. Immediately. The treasury is empty. The victories in the Hellespont were brilliant, but they didn't magically end the war. The Spartan navy, funded by Persian gold from Cyrus the Younger, the rival Tissaphernes warned you about, is being rebuilt under a new, terrifyingly competent commander, Lysander. He is your opposite in every way. Where you are flamboyant, he is austere. Where you are improvisational, he is methodical. Where you rely on charm, he relies on grim, patient efficiency. He is the tortoise to your hare. You need a decisive victory, and you need money to pay your fleet. You sail to Ionia, hoping to engage Lysander and secure funds. But Lysander refuses to give you the battle you want. He's no Mindarus. He won't be baited. He stays in his fortified harbor at Ephesus. You are left trying to shake down cities for cash, a task that looks less like a supreme commander's duty and more like a glorified shakedown. The golden aura begins to tarnish. Frustrated, you leave the main fleet at Nodium to go on a private fundraising mission, a polite term for raiding. You leave the fleet under the command of your personal helmsman, Antiochus. He's a friend, a drinking buddy, but he is not a general. Your orders to him are explicit and simple. Do not, under any circumstances, engage the enemy. Of course, he engages the enemy. Antiochus, in a fit of arrogance, decides to taunt Lysander. He takes a small decoy squadron and sails right up to the mouth of the Ephesian harbor, hoping to mimic your own daring tactics. But Antiochus is not you. And Lysander is not a fool. Lysander springs the trap. He sends out a small force to chase Antiochus, then follows with his entire fleet. The decoy squadron is annihilated. The rest of the Athenian fleet at Nodium, seeing the disaster, scrambles out in a disorganized panic. Lysander picks them off one by one. It's not a major battle, but 15 Athenian triremes are lost. Antiochus is killed. It's a minor defeat, militarily. Politically, it's a catastrophe. For you. The news reaches Athens and your enemies, who have been waiting silently in the wings, pounce. The story is spun with vicious precision. Alcibiades, neglecting his duties, went off on private business. He left the fleet in the hands of an incompetent crony. His arrogance led to the death of Athenian sailors. The narrative is simple, damning, and effective. No one cares that Antiochus disobeyed your direct orders. No one cares that it was a minor setback. All they see is the perfect hero of the triumphant return, suddenly looking fallible. The adoration of the crowd, you discover, has the shelf life of unrefrigerated fish. It was never love. It was just a bet. And after Notium, it looks like their bet might not pay out. They don't just want a general. They want a miracle worker. The moment you prove to be merely human, you are a liability. They don't put you on trial. They don't exile you. They just don't re-elect you at the next election. It's a quiet, bureaucratic shiv in the ribs. One day you are Strategos autocrator. The next you are just a private citizen. You know what comes next? The lawsuits, the political attacks, the scapegoating for every problem the city faces. You've seen this play before. You wrote half the script. You don't even wait for the curtain to fall. You pack your things. And for the third and final time, you abandon Athens. You don't go to Sparta. You don't go to Persia. You sail to a private castle you own in the Thracian Chersonese, a remote fortified estate on the European side of the Hellespont. From your battlements, you can watch the triremes pass by the grain ships you secured and the warships of the city that has once again cast you out. This is the final rejection. Athens didn't just fire you. They grew tired of you. You were too brilliant, too too much. Your very existence was a source of instability. They craved the victories you could provide, but they couldn't stomach the personality that came with them. They wanted the lightning, but they were terrified of the thunder. You watch from your lonely fortress as the war grinds to its inevitable conclusion. You see the new Athenian generals, your replacements, making a string of tactical errors. In 405 BC, the entire Athenian fleet, nearly 200 ships, is camped on an open beach at a place called Aegospotami, directly across the strait from Lysander's fleet at Lampsacus. It's a shockingly incompetent deployment. They have no harbor, no easy source of supplies. You ride down from your castle. You find the Athenian generals, and you offer them your advice. You are a private citizen now, a political pariah, but you are still the greatest military mind of your generation. You warn them. Move your fleet to the safety of the harbor at Sestos. Don't camp on an open beach. You are making it easy for Lysander to do to you what you did to Mindarus at Cyzicus. You even offer to raise a force of local Thracians to support them for a share in the command. They laugh at you. They tell you that they are the generals now, not you. They tell you to go away. It is the ultimate humiliation, the final dismissal. Scorned by the very men who are about to lead your city to its doom, you ride back to your castle, and you watch. A few days later, Lysander executes a plan of brutal simplicity. He waits for the Athenian crews to scatter from their ships to forage for food. Then he launches a surprise attack. The entire Athenian fleet is captured on the beach without a fight. The war is over. Athens is starved into submission. The long walls are torn down. The empire is gone. Everything is lost. All because they wouldn't listen. Now, there is nowhere left to run. With Sparta victorious, its new puppet government in Athens, the 30 tyrants, led by your old associate Critias, wants you dead. Lysander, now the most powerful man in the Greek world, wants you dead.
The Persian prince Cyrus, who is plotting to overthrow his own brother, fears you will reveal his plans to the king. And so he wants you dead.
You are a loose end. A man who knows too much and has too many enemies. You flee to the court of Pharnabazus in Phrygia, the very Persian satrap whose army you helped defeat at Cyzicus. It's a desperate final gamble. You are a man without a country, without an army, without a game to play. You live in a small village, a guest of the satrap, but you know you are a prisoner. The end comes on a moonless night. You are asleep with your companion, Timindra. You are awoken by a noise. You look outside. Your house is surrounded by assassins. They are agents of Pharnabazus, carrying out the order relayed from Lysander and the 30 tyrants. They don't try to storm the house. They are too afraid to face you. Even now, they set it on fire. You are trapped. The roof is catching, smoke filling your lungs. This is it, the end of the maze. No clever escape. No brilliant reversal. Just a sordid, grubby little murder in the middle of nowhere. But you do not die choking on smoke. You are still Alcibiades. You wrap your cloak around your left arm as a makeshift shield. You draw your dagger. Naked, illuminated by the flames of your own burning home. You kick down the door and charge into the night, a final defiant roar on your lips. The assassins scramble back. They don't meet your charge. They stand at a distance and hurl their javelins. They fill the air with arrows. You are struck again and again. You stumble, your makeshift shield heavy, your dagger useless. You fall to the dusty ground, not in a heroic duel, but peppered with missiles, brought down like a hunted animal. You die there, in the dirt of a forgotten Phrygian village, thousands of miles from the city you could never quite hold, and could never quite leave behind. So we come back to the beginning, the myth versus the reality. The myth is that of the tragic hero, the flawed genius, the patriot who could have saved Athens if only petty, jealous men had not conspired against him, if only they had trusted him. The reality is so much messier. The visceral truth is that you were rejected by Athens and Sparta for the exact same reason. You were untrustworthy, not just dishonest. Fundamentally, structurally untrustworthy. Your loyalty was a currency you spent to purchase your own advancement. You advised Athens. Then you advised Sparta against Athens. Then you advised Persia against both. Then you led an Athenian fleet while promising them a Persian alliance. That was a lie. You saved the democracy from a mutiny you yourself had the power to incite. You restored the city's holiest rites after being condemned for sacrilege. Every action was a paradox. Every allegiance was conditional. Athens and Sparta weren't fools. They were institutions, and you were a virus, a brilliant, seductive, and ultimately destructive piece of code that threatened the stability of any system you entered. They both tried to use you. They both tried to harness your fire. And they both got burned. They rejected you not because they failed to understand your genius, but because they understood your character all too well. You were loyal only to the game, and in the end, everyone who plays with a man like that eventually gets cleared from the board.
Your story isn't a tragedy of a hero brought low. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when limitless ambition is paired with a complete vacuum of conviction. You weren't a patriot. You weren't even a particularly effective traitor. You were just an accelerant thrown onto a fire that was already burning.